Uh-oh. I want some warrior advice.
Okay, well, welcome to January 21st Planning Commission meeting. All members are present, so let the record reflect that. If you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance by standing. I pledge allegiance
To the flag, to the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Per the city meeting rules and procedures, public comments are generally limited to 5 minutes or less if a large number of speakers is anticipated, or if approved by the chair. Speakers desiring answers to questions should direct them to the Planning Commission, and if relevant, the commission may direct them to staff. Speakers can also follow up directly with staff during regular city business hours. Please file a speaker's card with the administrative secretary on the form provided at the back of chambers. During this portion of the meeting, those in the council chambers are permitted to speak on items that are not on the agenda. Public comments for scheduled agenda items shall wait until that time. Zoom participation during the general public comment period will not be accepted. Please note that the commission's actions are final unless an appeal is filed with the city clerk within 10 calendar days.
Through the chair, we have 5 in-person speaker cards.
Okay, very good.
Our first speaker is Travis Martin.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here this evening with an item that weighs heavy on my heart and one that is personal to me, both as a veteran, as a member of the community, and as a supporter of our firefighters and first responders. Anything I say tonight should not be in any way construed or considered to be attributable as poor or weighed poorly against those groups. Our firefighters, our first responders, our police, and other emergency services personnel are held in incredibly high regard, both by myself and the veterans community, many of which overlap. But over the last 18 months, we have been in an attempt to generate an open conversation with the Contra Costa Board of Supervisors, particularly our Supervisor Burgess overseeing this area, regarding the property that is that currently houses the Veterans Hall, Brentwood Veterans Memorial Building, as well as previously held a firehouse that has subsequently been removed. My issue isn't with a need for a firehouse serving the downtown Brentwood area. That is clearly needed. My issue with it is its location. The building has been slated or is proposed to be placed, the new one, on property that is not historically owned by the Confire organization. That property was originally bonded by the taxpayers in 1922. under the 4041F laws of the time, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember the exacts, but the bottom line is that property purchased with that money, the entirety of the property, not just where the building sits. That property was to be held for a place for veterans. At a time when World War I was over and we had yet to know that World War II was coming, our county foreseer, or our forefathers, had the foresight to know that our veterans needed a place. And in guaranteeing the bonds to guarantee the location, it was incumbent upon the county supervisors to hold that property for that purpose, as it is required by law and not allowed for any other purpose. Last month, we were made aware that the supervisors have deeded the property over to Confire. I don't hold Confire responsible for the opportunity to build a new firehouse. I don't hold Brentwood Building Commission or the City Council at any harm for this. They are simply doing what seems to be the right thing. Unfortunately, somewhere lost in that translation is the veteran's claim to that property as it existed in its inception and as it should have been maintained for our purposes in perpetuity. We have not today, nor have we ever relinquished claim or offered for exchange that property. I'm not referring to the buildings. I am physically referring to the dirt that sits underneath them. It is my request, my humble request, to the commission and later to the city council, that at a minimum, we delay, if not deny, the use of that property for this fire station. There are plenty of opportunities around our city that are just as viable, but they don't come with the taking of property from our veterans and the taking of taxpayer money for other purposes. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your time.
Our next speaker is Don Duran, or Dan, I'm sorry.
Good evening. My name is Dan Duran. I am the commander of Post 202, Veterans Building. I'm also the president of the Building Committee. And now that I've got that out of the way, I'm speaking to you as a citizen of the city of Brentwood. You folks are the Planning Commission. You're supposed to be looking out for the city of Brentwood. If that firehouse goes in, you're going to lose First Street because the firehouse is not shutting down so that you can have parades, farmers market, or anything else downtown, because they're not going to close that fire department so they can go this way. Or actually it's a right turn coming out of the firehouse. They're not going to do that. They have said that they are going to make accommodations for it, but I don't see how they're going to do accommodations. They can't pull a fully loaded fire truck through the alley, as you well know, because the alleys are not constructed for that much weight. And when a full fire truck went down the alley some years ago, it actually broke through and the sewer pipes were broken. The water pipes were broken and the gas lines were bent. So now you want to send something down that road that even weighs more? That makes no sense to me, folks. I'm sorry. It just doesn't. And I understand that we need that fire protection, but the county can come up with someplace other than that that won't affect downtown. Because you have to remember, our downtown is the safest downtown in Contra Costa County. absolutely perfect. People take their children on weekends and stay downtown till 12:30, 1 o'clock. No problem. You're going to take that away? I really don't think that's a good idea. So I'll let the rest of the veterans say their spiel because I wanted to speak to you as a citizen of Brentwood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dawn Hester.
Honorable Commission members, my name is Don Hester. I am on the board with the Brentwood Veterans Memorial Building, and I am the commander of the Delta Diablo Detachment of the Marine Corps League here in Brentwood. And I've been in this community for over 20 years, serving the community, and so is the Marine Corps League. And the issue with the fire department that we're coming to you before you, I know that you're not talking about it at this meeting, but in February, the county plans to provide you with their application, and we're asking you to deny that. On behalf of the Marine Corps League, we're asking for you to deny that because frankly, we shouldn't have to ask another agency to hold another agency accountable. But the funds that were used to purchase that property, that entire lot from this corner where the Veterans Hall stands to where the fire department used to stand, was all dedicated with a special tax by the County Board of Supervisors in 1922. Yes, it's 100 years ago. But it doesn't mean because 100 years has passed that all of a sudden they can use it for a different purpose. That's not how taxpayer funds get used. And as a taxpayer, if you tax me for something and then you decide later on to switch what you want to use it for, that's inappropriate. And we're asking you, it's unfortunate that we have to ask you to help us hold them accountable for what they're supposed to be doing. But that's what we come to you today to ask for that. And by the way, you may say, well, how did a fire station get there in the first place? You know how it got there? It was a volunteer fire station that was put there in 1937. And you know who manned it? Veterans. And that's why it was put on veteran property. Now, during that entire time, a district was formed. The county took control of it and said, hey, that's our property. Yes, that is their property. The deed says it belongs to them, but it has a fiduciary responsibility to belong to a location for veterans to meet, not for any other purpose. And I don't understand why this is so difficult for the county to understand or why they continue to ignore us. But we're coming before you. We understand it's not necessarily your job to tell them to do that, but this is where we're at. And so that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Mike Majelkovic.
Hi, my name's Mike Mijakovic. I'm from the Brentwood VFW, post 10789. I'm the junior vice commander. Probably 19 months ago, I actually went down and spoke in front of the county supervisors about this issue, about the Military and Veterans Code 1266, which specifically states that property was granted to be used just for veterans.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a section 4041F of the Political Code of the State of California, 1921. The use of this property for a fire station directly violates a restrictions associated with these funds. Additionally, the California Military and Veterans Code 1266 explicitly prohibits such use of this property. We are asking you to stop this by not issuing a permit or allowing this to go forward. I know we need a fire station, but it's not the place for it. It's going to impact a lot of things in downtown Brentwood. We do every single parade in the city of Brentwood is a VFW and the VSOs. And we're asking you to please really look into this. They are in total violation of laws. There has been a letter sent to the state attorneys general, the public controller's office, and we've also sent another letter back to the city, to the county again also about this. So they're not answering us. They're not listening to us. We're just asking for you guys to please hold them accountable for this. Don't allow them to do this to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last speaker card is listed as trouble.
Oh, God.
Hey, no, it's not. I'm going to be freestyling tonight, and I apologize. Because it has to do not directly with the HCD agenda item. It's more adjacent, so please allow me to elaborate. There's a little known secret within a certain government entity. It's really, really deep in the category of what they can't or won't do. And that has to do with civil litigation. What do I mean? I had to find out firsthand when this entity decided to put into process a citation that literally was 7 days away from evicting my cousin from her home. As I went through this 8-week process during Christmas, one of the things that one of the mucky-to-mucks from this agency said to me was, they don't get involved in civil actions. All right, so meaning that when this entity listed the citation, and when my cousin did not resolve the issue, it forced another party to go through the process. And HCD basically said, it ain't us. They Pontius Pilate the whole thing. Why am I bringing this up now? Well, we know what entity, matter of fact, you're going to discuss it tonight, of what it is they describe, what we can do, and what is what, and all that stuff. What I'm curious about is what is this entity's function when the developer does not do what they say they're going to do? For example, tonight you have a decision to make with a development. For the sake of argument, let's say you agreed to everything they said, and they were like, okay, Heidi-ho, we're gonna start. If they vary from the plan, scope creep or whatever, more than likely they'll come up and ask for a CUP. Well, the thing is, you're not obligated to give it. They don't have that 5 strikes, you're out, and then builder's remedy, because you have met your HCD standards, and they have accepted the HCD standards. Another example that's closer to home is Bridlegate.
Oh, yeah.
I know people hated Bridlegate, but the one that the council accepted was the best of a bad deal. And I don't have time to go into it. Trust me, it was the best of a bad deal. But what it did do, and this is where I would like staff to answer the question, what does HCD do if Bridlegate does not do what they said they're going to do? Because if they come up and say, oh, we can't do anything, it's a civil action, well, son of a gun. Who would be the plaintiffs in this civil action?
So there's no get out of jail free card. There's no 5 outs and then we go with builder's remedy. We can do whatever we want. In Bridal Gates case right now, they have to go with what they said they're going to do. If they come back and say, we want to change the paint from sand to red, you're under no obligation to take it. And if they want to sue, okay, well, what else is new? But they can't bring in HCD because it is not a state matter. It is a civil action. And again, I'm talking from experience. If you looked at the my open comment last week at the council, you'll see I went into great detail. Didn't have enough time to finish, but I went into great detail of my interaction with HCD. So this is not hyperbole. This is one of those deep in the bowels of what HCD can't or won't do. And we need to exploit that. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we have no other speaker cards for open public comment.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you. Our next item is the consent calendar. There's one set of minutes for the regular meeting of December the 3rd. Is there any discussion or do I have a motion?
I make a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then we'll go right into public hearings. The conditional use permit for a restaurant known as Po U to occupy 26 square foot tenant space located at 6471 Lone Tree Way, Suite 304, within Empire Crossings Shopping Center. And the staff report will be given by Ms. Sarah.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairperson Roberts. Good evening, Planning Commission. Before you tonight is a brief presentation of a conditional use permit, CUP 24-008, for a restaurant. The proposed use is consistent with the various goals and policies of the general plan, which are explained more in detail in the staff report. The site is zoned Planned Development 35, Subarea B, which is intended to implement the general plan and allow a mix of general commercial uses. The Vietnamese noodle restaurant is proposed to be located again within the existing 1,726 square foot vacant tenant space. The restaurant does not propose to serve any beer, wine, or distilled alcohol and would have daily hours of operations from 8 a.m., excuse me, I think that's a typo on my slide, I apologize, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. However, the zoning district requires all restaurants and cafes to obtain a conditional use permit regardless of their size or alcohol sale. Given that the information in the staff report demonstrating consistency with the general plan and zoning, and as well as CEQA exemptions, staff recommends that the Planning Commission and adopt a resolution number 25-002, approving conditional use permit 24-008 as conditioned. That concludes my staff report, and I'm available for any further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Sarah. Are there any clarifying questions, statements that need to be made to Ms. Sarah? Yes? Okay.
Want me to go first?
Yes, you
Okay.
can go first. I lost your name and meant it's right.
It's been a while. So Sarah, just point of clarification, because on the slide it said they wanted to sell alcohol, but
That was
in the packet and what you said was they're not selling alcohol.
correct. I apologize. Yeah, that was a typo on my slides.
No problem.
No
I just-
alcohol,
Yeah,
just the pho restaurant, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m.
and the reason why they need a that this restaurant needs a CUP is because of where it's located in the city.
Correct, yeah.
Similar size restaurants in other parts of the city do not need a CUP as long as they're not serving alcohol.
It depends
or
on the
feeding-
zoning district.
Yeah, I know there's multiple reasons, but
Mhm.
the reason is because of the specific area it is, but similar sized restaurants that don't serve alcohol do not need a CUP.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Brent?
One last question on the, I think it was the second to last slide. It mentioned sub-area E as in elephant, but I want to clarify, it's sub-area B as in boy, correct?
I'm sorry. Oh, okay, I see the confusion. I think something happened to my last slide there. I apologize. So the slide with the location had PD 35 sub-area B. My last slide, I have many errors on, so I apologize. I don't know what happened to that slide, and I may have mixed things up, so I apologize.
I just wanted to make sure it was
No, yes.
aligned with the staff report, because it says B in the staff report. Yeah.
It is
No
B,
worries.
and it was B in the other slide, just not on the
Yeah.
last one.
Okay,
So
great.
thank
Thank
you.
Okay. Commissioner Foy?
I have no questions.
Okay, I just have, just want to know as it relates to the parking, because there's a lot going on over there. And so I'm just wondering, a shared parking, I would take it. Whoever gets there first, that's how it will work out as it relates to this particular location. In other words, there's no designated parking that's set aside for this, correct?
That is correct. It is a shared parking agreement within the center. When it was originally developed, they had, without knowing the tenants themselves at the time, they had guesstimated that there's around 6,000 square feet that would be intended for restaurant uses, and remaining would be used for commercial. They are still basically at that same square footage, so the parking count should be accurate from what it was parked at initially.
Okay, understood. It's tight over there, very tight. I have to circle quite a bit. And finding it's all about timing. So it's, okay, well, I'll hold my thoughts for the applicant. Thank you. Okay, well, at this time, yes, please.
Excuse me, Sarah? Just to follow up on the parking, just out of curiosity, when you go, there's like a separation between the parking, I guess, that's immediately in front of and right behind, and then if you go to the building, is the parking on the other side of like that, for lack of a better word, it's not a gutter, but it's a trestle or little divider. Is that parking able to be used for, or supposed to be used? Let me say it like that, for that restaurant?
Sure. April, are you able to share my screen and I can put up a map? Okay, you can see my mouse. So this whole area, it's kind of an L shape, was the original center with the Arco kind of as a separate development. So parking, the cross access and shared parking is all this area, if you
Okay.
can see with my mouse.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, very good. All right, at this time, I'll open it up for public comments.
Through the chair, just to confirm your opening of the public hearing.
Yes,
and
please.
If the applicant would like to speak, you have 10 minutes.
Would the applicant like to come? Is the applicant here? Okay.
All right, we do not have any speaker cards for this item. We do have one hand raised in Zoom. We'll go ahead and call on Zoom user.
Hi, sorry, I'm the applicant.
Oh, you're the applicant.
All right, go ahead. You
Yes.
have 10 minutes.
Oh, well, whatever I need to say, I think Sarah said everything. I hope I just get the permit from you guys and serve you some pho. I'm good, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
At this time, we have no other hands raised in Zoom.
All right, well, thank you. But does anyone, the commission, have any comments or questions for the applicant? Commissioner Spaulding?
applicant if that's where we're starting.
Okay, yeah. Commissioner Brunt, Commissioner Floyd? No? Okay. All right, thank you. All right, then, at this time, I'm going to close public hearing. I'm looking for
I make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so, any discussion, any further discussion, commissioners, on this? Commissioner Spaulding?
I mean, there's been restaurants in this spot before, so this is just a different restaurant. There's plenty of parking in the space for it, so I know the applicants waited a bit. I had a conversation with Sarah this afternoon. Sounds like they've waited a little bit longer than they anticipated just because of the process for the CUP. So certainly, I think where it's located makes sense. And Brentwood always is looking for new and different restaurants. So that's all.
Okay. Commissioner?
Yeah, I don't have or see any issue with this restaurant in that area. And especially considering that another restaurant at that size probably wouldn't have to go through a CUP, but it's a matter of zoning.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Floyd?
Yeah, I have no objections to this.
Commissioner Brandt?
I think the only thing that was peculiar here was that it's, that this type of restaurant required a CUP. Certainly unusual in my eyes, at least, so just an observation. But yeah, I think that parking lot is hit or miss. I think it should support that. You know, the Wingstop is next door, next to the dental place. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it won't be empty, let's just put it that way. Which, you know, hopefully this business does very well, or, you know, whatever. Anyway, other than that, I don't really have any major comments other than it's nice to see another adding to the diversity of restaurant choices for Brentwood residents.
I agree.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, that said, Commissioner Spaulding, I'm looking for a motion.
Yep. I make a motion to adopt resolution number 25-002, approving conditional use permit 24-008, subject to certain findings and conditions.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations. Okay. Let's move on to our next topic. Sure that I got this right. And it looks like it's the zoning code amendments to the Brentwood Municipal Code, but I'm wondering, we've got a design review for 8 new single-family homes. If the commission would like for us to address that, because I think that's what most of the folks are here for, and put the E1 after that, the zoning code amendment afterwards, if you don't have any objections. Any objections? Okay, then. So I'm going to jump to the application for design review for the 8 new single-family homes. The staff recommends the Planning Commission adopt. I will let Ms. Sarah present.
All right, thank you again. Good evening again. Before you tonight is a design review application for 8 new semi-custom single-family homes, including 5 single-story homes and 3 two-story homes located on a privately maintained street known as St. James Court off of Minnesota Avenue, across the street and just north of Bristow Middle School. I'd like to take a few minutes here just to go over the relatively brief background of this application. The vesting tentative subdivision map to subdivide the property into 8 single-family lots was approved back in 2007. Shortly thereafter, as you may remember, was the economic downturn, which unfortunately resulted in a halt in development. To assist with this challenging time, the state granted automatic extensions for approved subdivision maps. The state repeatedly issued these extensions for a total of 7 years, which extended the life of the subdivision to 2016, at which time Bailey Neff, who was the applicant, requested and was approved of a 3-year time extension from the city. In 2019, Mr. Neff again requested and was approved of a 3-year time extension from the city, further extending the life of the subdivision map to 2022. When the final map, then recorded and design review applications were submitted to the city, it was in 2023 that the improvement and grading plans were approved and on-site work associated with the subdivision began. The property was sold to Bianchi Tillett Development in late 2022, who is now the current owner and developer. At this time, the applicant is requesting review and approval of the design applications associated with the architectural plans for the 8 new homes. A condition of approval from the maps originally stated that no 2 homes shall have the same floor plan, which has resulted in the development of semi-custom homes. That said, I will be going through each lot quickly for consistency and design. To start on the screen here is an overall site plan of the 8 homes, with lot 1 starting in the southwestern corner and moving counterclockwise to lot 8 up at the northwestern portion of the site. All right, so we'll start here. Here's lot 1. It's a site plan and a chart here showing compliance with the zoning requirements for the planned development 26, sub area 16. So I'll just kind of briefly go through these. We can look back at them later if we need, but here's a site plan for lot 1 and the front elevation of the home for lot 1. We have lot 2 here for you, demonstrating compliance with the setbacks, front elevation as well. Lot 3. I know I'm going through this quickly, but the detailed report is in the staff report. Here's lot 4 for you with the front elevation. This is the first 2-story home. Lot 5, also a 2-story home. Lot 6. Lot 7. The third 2-story home. And here's lot 8. Moving on to the architecture, as the application for the project was still under review when the interim objective design standards went into place, the project was therefore subject to compliance with the ODS. The 8 homes comply with all applicable standards except for standard 2.2 and 1, requiring all front entry garages to be set back at least 4 feet behind the front plane of the structure to which it is attached. Applicants may seek exceptions or modifications to these standards by electing to process the development application through a discretionary review process in which the Planning Commission, as the reviewing body, has the discretion to approve the exception if it determines that the overall design of the homes is applicable. However, if the Planning Commission is not inclined to approve the exception, staff has added 2 conditions of approval in order to approve the project while modifying the lots to ensure compliance with the ODS. So here are those 2 conditions of approval that modify the lots that were not compliant with the ODS. Those are also in the staff report as well as the existing conditions of approval that are in the packet for you tonight. Okay, given this information, given this information, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 25-001, approving a design review, application 22-010, application for 8 new single-family homes located on St. James Court with the following APN numbers. I will save you all and not read all of them for you, but thank you. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions, and I believe we also have a team from Lev Designs here as well.
Okay, thank you. Are there any clarifying questions for Ms. Sarah? Commissioner Floyd?
I have no questions.
Commissioner Brand?
The building height measurement, I assume that's the midpoint average for the top and bottom, or how is that calculated?
Sure. So our code actually goes, it's measured from the height to the highest point, and it's from the finished grade of the development.
So just to the finished grade of the development, it's not related to the PD, it's not related to the APNs, it's just,
So the zoning district, which is part of, or the PD is basically the development standards or the zoning here. So that stipulates that the maximum height is 30 feet. And then we measure that from the finished grade of the development to the highest point of each of the buildings. So the points that are called out, there are different elevation marks, and I can flip back through, but for instance, when we say that the building is 23 feet 5 inches tall, that's to the highest peak. Is that clear?
so it's the, excuse me, so that would be like, if I'm just trying to picture this, the highest point of my roof all the way down to what effectively the slab that, goes to my front door.
It's actually basically the dirt below the slab.
The dirt below the slab, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and that corresponds, so each house's height is measured the reference point is its own property. There's no central point that it measures the
Correct.
building height to. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying.
Commissioner Spaulding?
So tonight our role is only for design review because this was already approved and then it had a myriad of extensions.
Correct. So yes, we're just looking at the architecture for the 8 homes.
And I don't know if this would be considered a clarifying question or a question for later is I know there was emails, there's been a lot of emails and conversations with the city about some agreement or some, whether a formal agreement, informal agreement with a developer, but not the current developer. Is that either for the question for now or for later?
Through the chair, I mean, you can ask whatever you want now, but my
Yep.
preference would be to hear from the applicant and the public first.
Okay.
And then to the extent that comes up during that time, the commission can circle back with staff.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner?
Well, in that case, I have no questions at this time.
Okay, very good. Okay, then at this time, I will open it up for public hearing.
Through the chair, this will be a public comment, so no vote needed when we close.
Okay.
Public comment is open. Would the applicant like to speak?
Would the applicant like to come up and speak?
My name is Mike Moreland. I work with
Excuse me, sir, could you do me a great big favor and push that black button on top of the podium to push the podium up?
This one?
Mm-hmm. And then you can also adjust the mic so we can catch your audio, please.
I didn't hear that last part.
You can adjust that mic so we can catch your audio. Thank you.
Okay. So my name is Mike Moreland. Is that better? All right, there we go. My name is Mike Moreland for the third time. I work with Bianchi Tillet Developers. We're a luxury home builder out of Roseville, California. We build in some high-scale neighborhoods around Roseville, and Granite Bay is probably our main area of business. And we build homes anywhere from $1 million up to $8 million. I mean, we do some nice wework. And we're excited to work down here in the Brentwood area. This is just another upscale neighborhood that is full of nice people. So we're looking forward to this opportunity. We understand that there's some concerns about privacy, and I would challenge anybody that nobody's more concerned about that than I am. When you sell a home of this caliber, the caliber that we're proposing here, you don't get that dollar amount without privacy for the people that you're building for. So we'll do whatever it takes in order to get the privacy for are the people that we sell these homes to, as well as to our neighbors. We want happy communities. It's not fun when you have people that are fighting and they live right next door to each other. That said, we've gone through great measure to design a building that's very nice on property that we own, and we'd like to build it. I had Lev go through and do a model of our homes on the lots that we own and the neighbors' houses as well. And I don't know if we can hand this out or we have the model electronically, but we can also give that over to you guys so that you can look at that and see that there are no privacy issues with looking out over from the second floor window of any of the 3 homes that are proposed as 2 stories. Past the 40-foot setback of our lots, over the 12-foot wall that divides the 2 houses, and with the great difference between the two houses. Max here with Lev did all this, and he can go through all that as needed, but that's why we're here, and happy to answer any questions. Oh, last, in your residential design guide, to mitigate privacy concerns, there's a whole section in under subdivisions, chapter 2, 2.8, and landscaping is a good way to mitigate that. You can plant trees to block views from certain windows on our side of the property, on their side of the property. It doesn't matter. It matters, but we'd be happy to work with our neighbors to make that happen. We don't want any ill feelings here. So I guess we can let these guys talk and express their concerns. And if there's any follow-up, we'd be happy to come back up.
Can we see that model, please?
I can.
I can pass it around. Thank you.
Through the chair, do you want me to try to see if I can get their electronic copy and see if I can put them on the screen?
Yes. We'll bring them back up later. Okay. At this time, I have opened it up to public hearing, public comments. So
Through the chair, would you like to see if the commission has any questions of the applicant?
we're going to wait. We've decided to wait.
Okay, we'll go to our speaker cards first, and then we'll go to Zoom.
Okay.
Our first speaker is Mike Dingering.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak. It was good to hear from the builder and his desire to work together with the neighbors. And of course, there is a big concern about the 2-story houses and line of sight views. He did mention 12-foot walls, but I haven't seen 12-foot walls on the plans. So I don't know if they are going to be, that's going to happen, or if that's still in planning. I do wonder when the walls will appear, the brick walls above the retaining wall. I don't know when we'll see those on a plan, and the height of those, and what that'll look like compared to the houses. So that's interesting comment about there are no line of sight problems. Maybe aren't windows on those sides that go on those 2-story houses. I don't know, but I'll be looking forward to hearing about that. And I know there's others who want to talk about the houses as well, so I won't spend too much time on that. And if this is just about the review of the houses themselves, this might be a little premature, but my other concerns are, I'm on the Randy Side Way, and there's going to be the brick wall, and then a 4-foot space with a concrete V-ditch for our drainage. and then another wood fence on our property line. And so the concerns are, number one, they only have 4-foot space between that brick wall and the wood fence where this V-ditch is going to be. And I'm wondering if that's enough room to allow for proper maintenance of that V-ditch in the future. Also, I'm concerned about how that area will be accessed from Minnesota to the very end of our properties. If I understand where the V-ditch is going to end, is probably 700 feet. And so if it's only 4 foot wide, where are they getting into that space? And in that 4 foot space, in order to do the proper maintenance. So I'm concerned about that. Would they need access from our yards, or would they get in some other way? Because that's going to be a big brick wall there for them to get through. If it's going to be from the St. James side. Also, there have down the street with where Randy goes down the street and it goes against the Carmel Estate development. They have the same sort of system there with the brick wall, a V-ditch, and then a cyclone fence. But there's about 8 foot between those points. And I know they've had a lot of issues trying to get the HOA of Carmel Estates to keep that area clean. The weeds grow up and it looks like a mess because unfortunately they just have cyclone fences, so they see it from the Randy side. And I know they've had problems with the HOA trying to get that cleaned up. So I was wondering, when do we get to see the CC&Rs for the Homeowners Association? And what kind of language is going to be in there to make sure that that area is safe and clean for drainage? Then one other question I have, and this could be just because of my ignorance on how these things work, but I'm sure that our wood fences need to come down for them to order to build that ditch and to build the wall and the new fence on the property line. When would those fences go up in the project? I'm sure the developer would like to get some houses sold, so to cover expenses, but it'd be nice to know when, if those, either the brick wall or the fences are going up early in the project, so we're not exposed to whatever's going on over there in the project itself. I know some of our neighbors have animals, and so it would be good to know if that is that required to go up, at the beginning of the project. I think those are my concerns. And I'll let others talk about the 2-story house issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Richard Boardley.
Hi, Commission. Thank you for allowing me to speak here. I'm one of the homeowners on Mission Fields in Carmel Estates. I back up to Lot 8 and Lot 7. And my whole thing is first of all, I'm against 2 stories being built in this project. I'm not against the project. I want them. I know they can build beautiful houses, and they can also build beautiful 1-story houses. 1-story houses are a hot commodity. I know when I was looking a long time ago, and I've recently talked to realtors, and 1-story is a hot commodity. So I don't think an issue of selling versus 2 stories is an issue. But I don't know if you guys are aware, but along Mission Fields Lane, that whole lane all the way down is nothing but 1-story houses. So back when the original developer came to you, which was, I think, Pulte, what they ended up doing was Randy Way residents had concerns in regards to the 2 stories. And I think at that commission meeting, there was nothing the commission stated they had to do. Pulte went ahead and said, we will agree to 1 stories. So if you were to drive down Mission Fields Lane all the way till you get to the creek, you'll notice that they're all 1 stories. Also, I think a single story, in keeping with that area, basically with the Randy Way ranchette-style homes, that if you keep the single stories, that keeps a ranchette-style home. So I'm trying to keep that whole area all the same. Yes, once you get farther and farther away, you go to the 2 stories. So basically, I'm against of it. And also, the other issue I have in regards to it is, on our property, we're 5 to 6 feet lower than the elevation that they're sitting at. So basically, we're going to have those houses 29, they can only go to 30 feet. So you look, the house could end up being possibly 35 to 36 feet above my resident. So I know they've mentioned line of sight and stuff of that, but if you want to put no windows on the backside, because I've noticed on Plan 7 that there are windows. So they do have, the ability to look. So with that, I have just 2 other concerns. One being to, I think, engineering. I think it's a lot, let me go 8765. There is a drainage. There is a big drain back there. Is that going to be capped off, or is, because I've been told that all the drainage is supposed to come out to St. James Place and go out to Minnesota. Is that correct? Or what's going to happen with the one drain there? Is it going to be capped, or don't know? Okay, I'll leave that. So what else? And I think they've taken care of some of my other concerns. So lastly, there are lots of other Carmel Estates people here. Some will get up to speak, some will not. But I am voicing that the majority of us are against the 2 stories that basically back up to it. So thank you for listening to my concerns, and I hope you will deny any 2-story homes. I'm not against the project, just 2-story homes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Scott Kading.
Hi. Yeah, I don't want to reiterate everything over and over again, but yeah, the same concerns with the 2 stories. I just wanted to bring to attention that the natural grade there is being filled. They're putting 5 feet of fill. So, like he just mentioned, it's a 30-foot home, especially on lots 4 or 5, plus the 5 feet of fill. Yeah, I could understand if the natural grade was already 5 feet higher than the adjacent neighboring lots, but it isn't. They are raising it plus the 30-foot home. And and I just the municipal code, from my understanding, what's the intent? What's the intent of that code, the 30 feet? Is it for visibility or privacy or both? So now you're infringing on the existing adjacent neighbors that had that visibility before and not anymore. I guess that's just my biggest concerns. And I guess everything else has kind of been addressed, I think. Yeah, I guess that's really it for me.
Okay, thank you so much.
Next, we have Veronica Miller.
Hi there, I'm short. Should I leave it? No, she's telling me, push it this way. Or I'm a tall child. So, thank you. My name is Veronica Miller. I'm a Carmel Estates resident. I also have the pleasure to volunteer as a board member. And I was here a few weeks ago, and so while this doesn't necessarily directly impact my residence where I live, there are a lot of people unhappy with the 2-story building behind, because the folks in Randy Way came forward and requested the 1-story. As mentioned, we have 106 homes. All the homes on Mission Field that back up to Randy Way are all 1-stories. People love their homes. They get real estate cards on them. It's a great investment, and we love our neighborhood. Sorry, it's been a long day. I'm super tired. So with having fiduciary duty to that neighborhood, we are concerned about the drainage. While I got the engineer report, it didn't answer all of the questions. You've heard them again tonight. We are concerned we're lower. We don't want that water coming in and flooding our neighborhood. We like our neighborhood too. In addition to the shared walls, we appreciate a great builder coming in. Thank you. I've been in Brentwood since '97. We're really excited to have a good builder, but we also just want to manage the expectations that we've all had as a neighborhood, and we've been with for over 10 years now in our neighborhood. There are some neighbors that absolutely, they do not want the 2-story. And again, if you look, there's 13 homes that are all 1-stories. So I ask that you take the walls into consideration, the drainage in consideration, as well as the value that we have in our nice little gated community to retain the value in our homes, that there will be some unhappy people who may choose to leave if there are 2 stories behind their house. And that would, be unfortunate for our neighborhood. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
At this time, we have no other speaker cards in person. We'll go ahead and go to Zoom. Our first hand raised is Danny Dorman.
Oh, I didn't know it was going to be, this one was going to supersede. So when I looked at what I saw, and to be fair, I didn't pay as much attention to this agenda item as the next. But as Commissioner Sparling is well aware of, my very first question is going to be, are there fences? Are there neighbor fences and so on? I heard about the wall. I can't envision where that 12-foot wall is relative to the neighbors that have spoken out. I can say from experience, my son has a home in Garin Ranch, and it's one of those compact home areas. I mean, it's nice, but he has a second-story home. His neighbor has a second-story home. They both can look into each other's living room. And I think they can actually look in each other's bedrooms too on the second floor. So you can put up reflective glass and all that stuff. And maybe that mitigates it. You could put up shades and maybe that mitigates it. For the person buying the home, that could be part of the package. The people who own the home, though, the ones that you heard from tonight, they're going to have to spend money to accommodate these builders. Now, whether or not it's first story, second story, that's not my issue here. It is simply, I know from experience what these neighbors have voiced. I didn't know if they had any experience with any of their friends and family. I know from personal experience what happens when you have people who can look into your home. I don't know how much time I have. Oh, the clock's not there. Oh, cool.
Danny Dorman, you have 2 minutes and 50 seconds.
Oh, darn it. I thought it was infinite. Okay. Well, that's okay. This now goes back to what I said about HCD. Well, here's another thing that it concerned me with respect to Sino, which was purposely putting out bogus, and I guess I'll have to use allegedly, bogus plans, knowing that it was going to force the council to do something, you or the council. Okay. Well, the other thing that and I guess staff will have to look into this, they may have to break open a book or two, but if you're operating in good faith, meaning the developer isn't just sending you, as the kids would say, booty stuff just to push the can down the road to the fifth and final choice or approval. Or if you're not working in good faith with the developer, you don't have to worry, well, not have to worry, but that 5 strikes and you're out does not apply the same way. That was the thing with Sino. He kept coming back with bogus plans, knowing that the city would kick it back until it came to no choice. Again, HCD does not get directly involved in what's considered a civil action. And I don't know this developer, maybe they're working in good faith, but to cross I's and dot T's, make sure that they are operating in good faith. Because if they're just giving you bogus plans or bogus promises in the attempt to get down to the 5, and then, hey, we could build all these homes 2 stories, make sure they're acting in good faith. And again, make sure they have privacy fences. And that's it. Thank you.
At this time, we have no other hands in Zoom.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, I think that we're going to ask the applicant to come back up, and I think that the commission might have some questions for the applicant, if you would mind. Okay, thank you. I'll start with Commissioner Floyd. Commissioner Floyd, you got any comments or questions for the applicant?
Sure. First of all, my understanding is from a comment we just heard that the neighbors have not seen this yet. Is that correct? Correct. Okay. Would it be possible to get their electronic company?
Through the chair, yeah, I just received it. So if you want to share my screen, I have it up. And then if you want to just direct me through the pages to wherever you need Michael, then that would be great.
Well, I'm noticing right away that a couple of these houses have solar panels on their south-facing roofs, which is excellent. And so you don't want to put trees too tall to the south there, but maybe along the fence line, you won't get shading. And let's look at the next page is just a schematic. So I don't even know if it just shows a 6-foot retaining wall there. I don't see any 12-foot wall on this page.
So the retaining wall is just to hold the dirt between the 2 properties along, sorry, I didn't know which subdivision that is, but along Mission Fields. And then on top of that, there's a 7'6" tall fence, but it's made out of brick. So the cumulative of the 5'6" and the 7'6" is 12 plus feet.
Okay.
I know that's 13 feet.
Yeah. And so on the next page, I'm not quite sure what we're looking at here. So which lot is this at the top, on the top row maybe?
This is a section of the lot 5 and the property at Mission Fields 647. It's a schematic section showing the difference in the grade and also the height of those brick wall between the properties and also the setback from those brick wall to the second level of the proposed property on the lot, and also the schematics of how it all gonna work all together, the existing residence, the proposed residence. And it will be more clear if we'll go to the next slide where we'll see the 3D pictures, colored one. I guess it's a few less pictures there, yeah. So on those pictures, and let me explain a bit. So we modeled the entire subdivision. We put the actual grade there, take into the account the finished grade at Mission Fields and the finished grade on the proposed development. And also, we put it those brick wall to the scale as it is in real life. And also, all the houses are placed according to the finished floor elevation proposed, according to the grading plans and our plans. So this represents an actual views from the mission fields and opposite, the views from the windows of the second level of the proposed houses. So just few words to this. When I was going through the model and looking at those angles, most of the houses located in, I guess, all of the houses at mission fields, which are the closest to the proposed development. And I mean the numbers 645, 647, 649, 651, and 653. They won't see much of the proposed houses in our development, except of maybe a few ridges of the roof. And speaking to the windows on the second level, for lot 7, for lot 4, and lot 5, those windows are not that big, especially for the lots 4 and 5, because of the roof slope on the back, and because those windows, because of the slope, they turn in being very minor compared to the windows facing the front. And also, Sarah, I also sent one separate picture. It's specifically the view from second level on lot 7, which, yes, it has a bit bigger windows because there's a few livable rooms there. There's bedrooms on the back. But from those windows, from the second stories, you can see, you do not see the backyard of, I would say it was Mission Fields 653. So you see just the roof. You don't see the windows or walls of those houses, and you see mostly just a brick wall and a roof. And on some of the pictures from the report we sent, really from those, from the houses located at mission fields, the view would be almost the same. And I can share the model with the commission and the neighbors, which can be really operated by them on their computer on the phone, so they can interactively view this. Because we spent some time preparing for this, we literally modeled it all. So all those pictures, all those diagrams, they represent the real condition, real scale, because we really were thinking how it all will impact the existing subdivision from the first day we started sketching and designing this project, and it was a priority for us. And I'm speaking from the design perspective because I represent Lab Designs, who was involved in the design in this subdivision. And as you can see, the setbacks from the back of the property line on all the lots which are close to the mission field and all other neighbors, and they just were increased as much as possible. Some of them are up to 50, 55 feet for the second level from the property line. So yeah, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Sure, I have questions. So, you know, looking at the page we're looking at now, there's a 2-foot difference in the grade, and then the fence is as high as 12 feet. It looks like it's, you have it 9'6" at one place and 12 at another. I think is that for the slope? Okay, so this is a 12-foot wall. Essentially, it's going to be 14 feet high, looking at it from out the back door of the house behind it. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Sarah, can you scroll up to a picture of the actual wall, the actual photographic picture? So,
These photos here?
yeah, just a little bit more. So the one that's got the sign in front of it, for example, or the one next to it. So this is going to be their new backyard view when they're looking out the back of their houses. They're going to see this 12-foot tall brick wall.
Yeah, but I believe the developer is open to landscape those walls and make it more aesthetically pleasing for the future homeowners. And that's, I guess, one of the goals here. Because I understand your concern buying those kind of level of the house and looking on a huge brick wall from your back windows. It's not something you want to get, But in the same time, yeah, our landscaping plans will reflect the actions to make it look nicer than it's just shown right now.
And if I could, also that same wall, I forgot your name, I'm sorry. Mike, good name. That same wall is designed to go all the way around along Randy Way as well.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, addressing you guys. That same wall is designed to go all the way around, from lot 1 all the way back to behind lot 4 where the existing wall starts.
I see. And the neighbors have not weighed in on this with you at all? They haven't seen this wall before today, or is this the first time they're getting a look at it?
We've submitted the wall for review to engineering. I don't know that the neighbors have seen it or not seen it.
I see. All right. Okay. And have you had conversations with the neighbors? Have you given any consideration to maybe making one-story buildings or?
We've had conversations. It was not me in particular. When we started working down here, we put the lots up for pre-sale. So there is 1 2-story that is already sold. And as far as we were concerned, we knew that we were going to have the privacy for both the neighbors and ours. So we didn't push it any further than that.
All right. I think I have a question for Alan, actually. One of the neighbors brought up the 4-foot width of, I think you're calling it a swale on the diagrams, and he was calling it a ditch, and problems that might be for maintaining as far as even just keeping it trimmed down. I mean, stuff grows pretty wild if you've got water running through there. Do you want to weigh in on that? Like, is 4 foot wide enough at the length? I think you said it's 178 feet to get back in there and, cut back the brush and keep it nice.
Thank you, Commissioner Floor. Yes, we did look at it. It is currently proposed a retaining wall with a 4-foot buffer in that area specifically to address drainage from the Randy Way properties. So the Randy Way properties, interestingly enough, they sort of drain towards the project. So as one of the previous conditions of approval, it required the project to address that drainage, basically take it into the site and convey it through the new street that they're building and that infrastructure. So I was out there today at the site to check it out, and I did see some of the storm draining lines already installed. So it's kind of gearing and headed in that direction. With regards to your question as to the width, that is correct. The existing drainage easement or area for the Carmel Estates project, it is 8 feet wide. But from what I could tell, it is a challenge, as noted with the landscaping, or not landscaping, but the weed abatement there. The 4-foot wide one is a little bit more covered, and it will have a concrete swale versus I think it's more like a J ditch on the other one. It'll be wider as far as access. We don't have, to correct the applicant's point, I don't think I've seen the wall plans just yet. We do have grading plans approved, improvement plans approved. These are for utilities, primarily in the roadway. But we are still expecting to see the wall plans, and we'll get into that as far as making sure there's sufficient access to the area so that the HOA in the future can maintain it. So from what I'm seeing, the 4-foot width is adequate.
So is this going to be like a concrete channel? Like I know I have behind my house, about halfway down the hill, there's like a concrete channel. And is there going to be drainage along the way, or is it going to be free flowing?
Yes, it's kind of like a concrete channel. I wouldn't use the word channel. It seems a little bit more intense, but
it's just
it is a concrete swale, and they will have intermittent drainage inlets. So it won't be like a continuous flow through the entire stretch. I think there are 2 designated areas where they would flow towards. So it would be manageable sections of drainage, and it would be taken into the project site and conveyed out through our storm system.
Okay. All right. And okay. Let's see what other questions I had here that came up. I think Mike mentioned there's going to be, will there be CCNRs for an HOA that will manage maintenance of the ditch? And is that something we can even discuss here?
That is correct. As part of the process, there will be CCNRs that the developer will have to put together and provide. We haven't seen them yet, but when we do see them, we'll make sure that it is spelled out clearly that the HOA will be maintaining it. It should have some frequency and kind of detail for the future homeowners that they're aware that that is the responsibility of the HOA in the future.
And will that documentation be available to the existing neighbors?
I'll leave that up to the applicant. Typically, we take it in with the city as part of our review process, but they could always come in and see me to look at it. But I would recommend the applicant reach out to the neighbors as well, just to make sure they're satisfied.
Okay. And there was a question about whether the fences, as proposed, would go up before the houses are sold or built, or.
We would love to. We'd love to do the swale now. Like Alan said, we are currently installing the storm drain system. That would immediately precede the drainage ditch and the retaining wall, and then the fence on top of the wall.
All right, so it'll be before the houses are sold.
Correct.
Will it be during will the walls be up during construction?
I would like to do it before we go vertical.
Okay. All right. Okay, I think those are the questions that I had for the applicant. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And thanks, Alan.
Commissioner Brand.
Commissioner Floor asked all my questions, so.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Spaulding?
So I have a question for Christy. How can you sell something that hasn't been approved yet? How can you sell something that hasn't been approved yet? The applicant mentioned they did a pre-sale and they actually sold one of the 2 stories, but yet nothing's been approved yet. So
it's more of a question for them rather than for the city. I mean, the city doesn't have an interest in the property, but
Sure.
I would imagine I could just, conceptualize that they sold the lot, buyer beware, that, this project is not yet entitled, design review pending.
Okay. So the question that you heard Danny ask is a question I ask all applicants, right? Because he had a specific issue when the caller called in. So the good neighbor fencing that goes around it, it sounds like it's going to be this concrete wall, right? That's going to be included in the price of the house.
Correct.
He had a specific issue, so I always ask that for him because it's an area of concern for him. So, and the wall is going to be the consistent look and feel around the entire property.
Correct.
And then on the Randy Way wooden fences, I think Mike asked, those fences don't need to come down for you to put the swale in, and then obviously the fencing. I just want to make sure we get all the questions that were asked because we can't interact directly with the public. So their fences don't come down. You're going to build around them.
That would be my intent, is to leave their current fences in place. If the field inspector requires us to do something to make the width perfect, then we'll work with you guys and with the neighbors to make sure that their backyards stay protected, their animals stay inside, their kids are safe,
Right.
all that.
Okay. So you've heard the community, right? They don't want 2-story homes.
Correct.
So is that something that you're willing to adjust, or you're building 3 2-story homes, period? But that's what you're asking for. There's no wiggle room to, you stated you wanted a harmonious community. I believe that that's what you want, but then you have 3 2-story homes, and you heard the testimony tonight that a number of people said they don't want specifically 2-story homes. The designs of the homes, whether they're 1-story or 2-story, are beautiful.
Thank you.
I think you guys, the plans are fantastic. They're some of the best plans I've seen with the detail, the massing, all of that. Whether it's a 2-story or 1-story home, they're beautiful homes.
Mhm.
But you have residents who don't want 2-story homes because when you build an infill project, these homes have been there for a long time and they've had no neighbors, right? And so now they're going to have neighbors, and there's an impact to the community no matter how beautiful the homes are. And there's a feeling that a loss of privacy, no matter whether or not the angles are correct or not, and that's how they turn out, Is there a willingness to be flexible and put single-story homes in those 3 lots?
We would prefer not to do, or not to remove the 2 stories. The setbacks are, and the lots are at such a size that doing that would reduce the house size quite a bit and reduce the feasibility of the entire project as a whole. So we designed the project with 2 stories in keeping with the design guides that you guys have. So we would like to keep the 2 stories.
Okay. In the interim objective design standards, you have 3 issues, right? What happens if you have a backup plan if we don't agree to give you the waivers? Because that's a viable outcome tonight, right? We could give you 1, we could give you 2, we could give you 3, we could give you none, right? And I think one of them is lot 5, which is a 2-story home.
Right.
Correct? So if you don't get that waiver, how does that impact whether it's a 2-story house or a 1-story house?
I would have to go back and meet with the powers that be to figure that out.
Okay. I think that's all the questions. I think Commissioner Fuller asked some of the things that I had concerns with, so I'll let Commissioner Johnson go.
Commissioner Johnson?
So I got a few questions. So in one of the diagrams that you provided in the packet, there was that brick wall that we saw, right? I guess that was like Google Maps or whatever you showed the street. Is that wall up there right now?
Yes.
And that wall currently is going around all 3 sides of the property?
No, it's currently on the left side of the property and halfway on the back side of the property.
But it's not, the intention is to go,
Is to
complete it all the way around. But that is the wall.
Yes.
Okay. We were talking about, somebody mentioned, one of the residents mentioned that the lot was filled, like 5 feet was added with dirt. Did we raise the height of the property? I mean, the dirt?
So that precedes Bianchi Tillett's involvement. I believe there was fill in the project before we became involved. But I don't know how to answer that.
Okay, but from your knowledge, since you've owned it, you have not raised the dirt 5 feet, but it may have been raised previously. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. So I just want to make sure I understand. I just want to make sure I understand the drainage issue too. This is maybe so because the properties that are on, let me just get my streets right, not Mission Field, but
Randy Way.
Huh?
Randy Way.
Randy Way, because those properties are lower, and previously they were draining into this development. We have a mitigation, right? And is it the intention that all the drainage is going to go under the properties and come out into the sewer system?
From Minnesota.
Is that how? Could you just explain?
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Yes, the current drainage of the rear yards of the Runaway properties, they do head towards the project site. The project was conditioned to address that drainage, so it is indeed taking that drainage into the project site through its internal storm system and out towards Minnesota ultimately. There were questions regarding drainage about the northeastern corner of an existing drainage pipe that has a field inlet, I believe, at the northeast corner of the project. There were some questions as to what's going to happen with that. So the way the site is currently graded, that is actually the high point of the project. So everything is actually draining towards Minnesota.
Okay.
There will be no drainage towards the northeast or anywhere else except towards Minnesota. So we have approved grading plans, and I believe they've graded out the site to meet those plans. Again, we still are waiting for wall plans, which will further define the southern border and the southeastern border of the project. But as far as drainage goes, I am satisfied that the drainage won't be an issue.
Okay, so it won't be, water won't be coming from this site going into the neighbors or the existing neighbors' yards.
Okay, that's correct.
I guess you mentioned something about landscaping and views for all the neighbors in case. Now, I did see from the elevations, it looked like you're not going to be able to see into someone's home. That's what it appeared to be. And you said you were willing to put up landscaping trees, I assume, to further ensure that no one can, from your development, look into any of the neighbors' yards. Is that?
That's correct. Your design guide requires 24-inch trees to be planted that would significantly or totally give you privacy within 2 years of planting. And if you don't use the 24-inch trees, to use 15-gallon hedges that would grow to give you the same privacy.
In the back?
In the back, yeah.
Okay. Just based on what you're asking, just a quick question. Why was the garage on lot 5 put forward? What was the design reason that you had to do that?
Yeah, so I responded to this question. So as you can see, most of the parcels here, if we can take a look on the overall site plan. So
Sir, can you put lot 5 up, please?
So I would say, yeah, oh, thank you. So as we can see, while entering the subdivision, first 4 lots have pretty regular form, rectangular, while closer to the end of the property, the lots became smaller and the more weird shape. So as you can see, both lot 5 and lot 4, they have really problematic access to the front, which mean achieving 3-car garages there will make us to push the garage forward compared to the livable part of the house. So just the shape of this parcel, which corner parcels at the cul-de-sac always have those issues, it just made us to do this. And also responding to the previous one of the previous comments regarding the 2 stories. As you can see, 2 stories were put it in only few areas, and those 2 parcels, I remember while doing analysis in the very first design stages, if we'll go 1 story on those 2 parcels, specifically lot 5 and lot 4, those houses would be the smallest houses in this proposed subdivision, and their size would be even smaller than most of the houses at Mission Fields, which made us to make the decision to make those 2 houses especially be 2-story. Just to not make them the only exception as far as size and look, because I understand the concern about 2-story issue with the houses, while looking at the square footage of all other houses in this subdivision, those would be very small and will ruin a bit of the concept of the whole this subdivision we were putting in originally.
So what's the square footage of lot 5?
The square footage of lot 5, I honestly don't remember it on just right away, but I believe they all are around 4,000 square feet, right? I just don't remember the numbers right away, but the intent was to make both 2-story houses and 1-story houses have almost equal square footage, so that all houses have the same, almost the same square footage around, so that we don't have way too small or way too big. So most of them just be equal there. And also, if we can open the page with those retaining wall photos. And yes, it is the photo from the Google, the most recent we could find. As we look on the picture at the very bottom left corner and the very bottom, the very top left corner and the bottom right corner, maybe I'm confused here because I'll be honest, I was not on the property by myself. But as I can see, behind the wall, we can see the ridges of the homes, while there's 2 homes there, which for me looks like they're 2-story.
Okay.
Okay, this makes sense.
All right, Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, I have no further questions. Thank you.
All right. You know, there are a few things that are troubling for me. I hate to use that word, but I will. The residents that you are getting ready to share space with have been there for some time. And I just think that, and this is just my opinion, when you are coming in as the new person, it would do you good to work with the residents. Now, the residents have communicated to this commission that they don't want 2 stories. They just don't want it. For whatever their reasons are, and we've heard some of that being privacy. The wall factor, I live on Minnesota. So I've been watching this project become what it is today. And it's a slow movement, but you're getting there. But I look at that wall, and I'm sure the residents would agree that you sound like you are ready to do whatever it takes to accommodate them as it relates to the aesthetics of this project. But I just believe that with a community that is all walkouts, one level, to bringing in a 2-level building is something that they are adamant about not having. Privacy, that's one reason. I'm looking at the windows on, I think it's one of the houses, the back of the house. And I'm wondering, I mean, if there was a possibility that this would move forward, removing some of these windows from the back of the homes. I'm just not sure how you get around the privacy piece. I'm not sure about that. But beyond that, the aesthetics of the community is walkouts. And so you're coming in and disturbing that, is what I'm hearing from the residents, and putting in 2 stories. And you're entitled to do that. But at some point, it sounds to me, and hearing what is being said, there is, folks are not comfortable with that. There are some other complications, and drainage is one of them. And I wanted to bring this back to Mr. Allen. So, you know, I hear when we ask these questions, there's always not a problem, it's okay, don't worry, it meets the standards. But what happens when there's a flood? Okay, so is the city going to come in and take care of the folks whose homes would be affected by this? This is my concern. It seems so tight in getting to that one space that needs to be maintenance. And although we're saying it's not an issue, we know that climate is an issue, and we can't control that. But if indeed there's a flood and it's coming through that small space, how do we accommodate or mitigate to the homes that have been there? That's a big question. And do we come back and say, okay, well, the city said it was okay, but it's not. And now the homeowners have to deal with that fallout. That's a problem. It's a lot of house. It's nothing wrong with a lot of house. I'm just concerned that you're upsetting the community with 2 stories. And so I did also hear that you've gone ahead and done a pre-sale on something that we haven't approved yet, but it's, I think someone said buyer beware, so it's buyer beware. There's just some drainage is an issue. That wall is a big issue. I appreciate the landscaping that you're prepared to do, and it would have to be quite measurable. It'd have to be substantial to make it. The wall in and of itself is, I wouldn't want to look out my window and see that. It's like looking out at an HVAC. I wouldn't want to look at that. So those are some concerns. They're not questions, they're concerns that I have. And I don't know how we're going to get around it. The window factor is a factor, okay? And at some point, if indeed the commission wants to push this through, I'm pretty sure we're going to have to deal with the window factor, because those windows are there. And although you say that no one can really look down on these homes, I would say no, they can look down. That's been my experience with two-story and single walkouts. I can look down. Don't think I would hope we don't have those kinds of neighbors, but just the idea that there's somebody looking above, just the idea, even if it's not happening, is uncomfortable. So that's all I really have to say. I'm going to pass it over to Commissioner Spaulding.
Thank you. So just one follow-up question on the drainage to make I understand that, because I thought I heard this, Alan, you had meant, or someone had mentioned the drainage actually, where the water is coming from is not coming from this development. It's actually coming from Randy Way homes, right, in the backyard. And that's why the V is being put in to drain. So the new homes, I just want to make sure we have the facts right? Whether, make sure we all are aligned on what was said. It's not the new homes causing the drainage problems. It's the problems, problem may be the wrong word, but where the water's coming from is coming from the Randy Way side of it, not the new development. Is that correct?
That is correct, Commissioner Sparling. The Randy Way properties, they do drain towards the project site. So if anything, this project will make things better for those residents. We've met previously as a group as well to discuss that in general, and we've looked at the sections and making sure that the project is indeed making things better. All the runoff as a result of the project is going to stay within the project site and will be directed towards Minnesota.
And there's no bioretention area needed for my favorite thing ever.
It's my favorite thing also. What's interesting about this project, as Sarah mentioned, this was entitled quite a while ago, and this was prior to the inclusion of bioretention. So it actually, around the street, has what we call a bioswale. You won't like that any better, but it is different, and you are correct. There is no bioretention with this project, but it had to do with the timing and the regulations that were in place at the time.
Yeah, I know. It's a interesting project because it's been entitled for so long that it actually, if it started over today, would probably look completely different. And I think actually, to be quite honest, for the residents, probably worse. There'd be more homes. So, we have that. Speaking of landscaping, so the front landscaping, there's a turf, Sarah, I had asked you, I don't know if you had a chance to talk to him. The turf that's mentioned in the front, is that turf or is it grass? Because when I hear turf, I think AstroTurf or synthetic grass. What's the intention?
I believe the intention's sod. So
Sod?
grass, yes.
Okay.
Real grass.
Right. So one of the other challenges that the commission will may have to ask, because it's not in our design standards yet, but maybe will be in the future, is defensible space, right? So right now, and we just saw this in LA, obviously quite tragic what's going on in LA still. There is, what we've talked to other developers for is putting 5 feet of defensible space in the front. We can't do anything in the back, but because the rest of it, where the turf is located, is actually far forward from the fence. So I think you actually may be okay with the current design of the landscape. And we've had other developers put in synthetic grass rather than sod as a way to use even less water, right? Because my feeling, I won't speak for the commission, is you guys can do a cheaper, instead of sod, you can put in synthetic turf for cheaper than the residents ripping out your grass and putting in synthetic turf should they choose to do that.
So I'm looking at the landscape design, and there is no sod or turf or synthetic grasses. It's all
It says turf. on the drawings. As an example, I'm looking at page 57 of 83. And in the diagram, it says turf.
57 of 80. Which document are we talking about?
I'm looking at your St. James full project plan.
We recently, I believe we submitted the landscape plans to the city in the last several months.
So do we not have the current landscape plans?
There wasn't landscape plans submitted for the front yards. These are just conceptual plans that were included, but we do require formal landscape plans. But my understanding is we have not received those yet.
Okay.
I can, and if you wanted to share my screen again, I can show what page you're
Yep.
referring to
Yeah.
with the turf. But again, these are conceptual, so
Right.
showing that they will be providing landscaping, that it generally complies with requirements, but not,
Yep.
it doesn't necessarily have to be specific.
Yep. So the trees you mentioned earlier, right? You said 24-inch box trees, right?
In the front of the property, I believe you guys require bigger trees.
Correct. But where the challenge is with privacy, should you put two-story homes, right, is in the back.
Correct.
So are you saying that I thought I heard you say you're willing to put in trees.
Yes.
You're willing to put in trees in the back?
Yes.
And you would be okay with a condition of approval being added to make sure that that's actually done?
Not a problem.
And what size tree would you be willing to put into the back? Because if two-story home, obviously it's going to be, if you put in a small tree, it's going to take 10 years for it to grow to allay the concerns of privacy. What size tree would you be willing to put into the back as a condition of approval?
I would say up to a 48-inch or box tree,
And how many trees along the lots?
whatever it would need be.
Because they're quite long, they're quite large lots, right? So,
Sure. So, I mean, the way that I'm looking at the sightline study, there are no privacy concerns. But should there be one, or two, or three, or four, whatever landscaping would be required to alleviate that privacy concern.
and you would put that in, and that would be you would be okay with that being a condition, an additional condition of approval? Because today we don't have that.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right. So thank you for that. My last question for you is really, can I get an explanation of, and this is where it's always challenging to see the designs, and then I appreciate the sightline studies and we've had other builders take us through what actually is behind the wall, right? So on the second story, on the 3 homes that are second stories, right, where you have windows, what's behind those walls? Because the height of the house is, I'll just call it 30 feet, right? But the windows, where the windows are not at 30 feet, but also people are generally speaking not climbing on ladders to look through the top of the windows, right? So I want to get an understanding of what's behind there, because we've had builders build space, put windows there, and really that's open space. No one's ever going to look through the window. It's just a design feature of the house. So can you walk us through what's behind, specifically the rear-facing second-story view of the 3 second-story homes, so that we can get an understanding of the privacy concerns that the residents have?
So, in most of the cases, second level include loft area, which have very small windows, and it mostly just like 2x2, 3x3 windows. Then there's 2 bedrooms on the second level, and mostly that's everything related to the second level. While if we look at the lot, for lot 4, only 1 bedroom with a window facing the backyard is actually presented there. All other bedrooms, and there's 3 bedrooms total on the second level, because those one is a very small lot.
You mentioned lot 4?
Yeah, it's lot 4.
Sarah, can we get lot 4 rear elevation?
So
please?
there's only 1 bedroom with a window facing the back for lot 4, while loft, which is still located there on the second level, don't have windows facing the back at all. It have windows facing the side, which are fairly small.
Yeah, let's stick with lot 4 for 1 second. I'll just go one at a time.
Sorry, let me find it. This one?
Yes, that's the look from the second level bedroom.
Towards 645.
Yeah, from the lot 4.
So, and that's the house that's lot 5 next to it?
Yeah,
And
the
then we're
roof
looking into 645 in the distance.
correct.
Okay. What's the next 2-story?
It's a lot 5. Lot 5 pretty much has the same situation as lot 4. It have 1 bedroom from what I remember. Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, because lot 7 is a bit bigger. So, lot 5 have the same situation as lot 4. It have loft facing the back, which is also loft have windows, but there's 3 windows from what I remember, like 2x2 or 3x3, something like that, fairly small size. The header height is at 8 or 9 feet, so that no one would be staring through those windows. And there's 1 bedroom with those windows there, like that. And to make the window concern work, we're willing to review the amount of windows in those bedrooms, and we can eliminate some of them. Like you can see, we have 1 in the corner and bigger 1 in the back. But also, if we still, if the 2-story house like that will still be approved, we don't want the future homeowner have a tiny window in a bedroom. So I would say it would be a mix of compromising this, but also we still need to meet egress code and get at least 1 window, which would be enough for egress.
Right. No, I realize you have to have a window and a closet to call it a bedroom. So, okay. All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson?
So I just want to just get something else on the fencing, just to make sure I understand. I think one of the residents had a concern about knocking down fences, and I think I heard you say that you were putting their fence is going to stay up, and we're putting that brick wall, so they will not, if you're one of those neighbors around the perimeter of this development, you will not see, they will see their existing fence? Is that what is going to happen right now?
That's correct.
So right now, as I understand it, I'm just trying to make sure I get it. If I lived there right now and I was looking at a wooden slat fence or whatever I was looking at before, I'm going to be looking at after this is completed.
Correct.
So I would not see I wish I knew what fences were there currently, but I would not see your brick wall. I'm going to see whatever fence I had there previously.
If they had a 6-foot fence, and then we'll have a concrete swale, and then on this side, we'll have a small retaining wall, and then the brick wall on top of that.
And so the height of that new wall is higher than their existing wall. Is that the deal?
Correct.
Okay. And then just to make sure, Sarah, I just want to make sure there are no existing zoning laws or that prohibit the landowner from putting a 2-story house there.
Correct. The current zoning allows for up to 30 feet in height.
And so I think I heard something about the previous builder some time ago saying that they wouldn't do, so can you just refresh, make sure I understand?
Sure. I think you're circling back to what Commissioner Sparling was, or I actually don't remember who brought it up now. But yes, there was discussion that was actually regarding the the Carmel Estates subdivision, which is the subdivision to the north. So at the time of that development, during those planning commission meetings, the developer at that time agreed verbally to allow only 1-story homes on the Mission Fields. Okay. Mission Fields only, which is part of the Carmel Estates subdivision, not the subdivision we're talking about today.
Okay.
So there was never discussion regarding this subdivision. The previous discussions on this subdivision were only related to the land split into the 8 lots, so only the map. There was no discussion regarding 1- or 2-story homes on this property.
Just one last question, I think. For the residents, for the residents that are there, since the wall is going high, I think I heard you say you were willing to put on the outside of the wall. So I'm just trying to make sure I get this. So basically what I think I hear you saying is I'm willing to put trees on the inside of the new homeowners in your development to prevent them from looking out. And I thought I heard you say you're willing to put vegetation or whatever on the outside of the wall for any of the current residents looking at the back of their, did I mishear or is that true?
You didn't mishear that.
Okay.
I would say that if there is a privacy concern that cannot be accommodated by planting a tree on our property, and they wish to have a tree on their property, we would bear the expense of buying them a tree.
Or just beautification of the wall? Maybe it's not a tree, maybe, I'm just asking, just like if it was vines or something, attached to the wall. I'm just trying to make sure I understand for the homeowners that they're looking at their current fence, but your new wall goes higher than their current fence. Did you say you were willing to put something so that they didn't look at the brick wall?
I would have to talk to planning about that.
Okay, just want to make sure I understand.
There would be some maintenance required on that, and then on the other side of that wall is drainage.
The drainage.
The vegetation would then shed into that annually, so that might be more problematic than helpful.
Okay.
But open to whatever.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm just trying to make sure I understand what what's going on. Okay, I have no further questions right now.
Okay, Commissioner Floyd?
I think I'm ready for discussion. Thanks.
Okay. At this time, thank you so much. At this time, we're going to go ahead and close public comments.
Is there a way to redress some things that were said that were, I think, incorrect?
Oh, I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
At the discretion of the chair, you can invite anybody from the public back up who you might have a question for. Otherwise, if you're going to close public comment and have discussion, then public comment would be closed. So if you have a question for some member of the audience that you would like to ask, you're welcome to do so. Otherwise, they've each had their 3 minutes.
Yeah, I think that, I think we get the gist of what's going on. And if you would like to come up and.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the commissioners would like for you to come up, Mike, so he can ask a question.
And I would just remind you that this is a question and answer situation. We're not having additional public comment.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
A couple of things when.
Oh, no.
Sir, I'm just going to indicate that for the record, you've had your 3 minutes to address the commission. We have a commissioner that has a question for you, and so I'm going to permit him to ask a question.
Yeah, sorry about that. I know it's a little unusual what we're doing here, but it is just a question for you. And it's a simple question. Are you satisfied with the wall?
There's 2 walls or fences in regards to.
I'm talking about the one with the bricks and everything. I mean,
let's see, I'll say it this way. I am not, if they're not replacing the wood fences. We had a previous meeting, maybe a year ago with Alan. He has notes on this anyway, where they said they would be replacing the wood fences on the property line. And so if they're not, then we're looking at a 12-foot brick wall. So
so if there was a wood fence and then the brick wall, you'd be okay.
Yeah, the discussion a minute ago was our fence is going to stay the same, and so we'll just be looking at our fences the whole time.
Okay.
That's one house doesn't have fences. My house has a 30-year-old fence that is halfway down. I've been propping up for 20 years, knowing this project was going to happen. And when we talked to Mike wasn't there. But when we talked to developers, we asked him, and he said he would put new fences when they wood fences.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you so much.
So
that is a big wall.
Okay, we appreciate that. Thank you.
And then,
okay, I can't do it. Can't do it. Sorry. But we get the gist of what's going on. I can't do it. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, public comments, and open it up. Well, let me get a motion. I need one.
Motion to close.
I don't need
public
one.
comment.
Okay, so let's go into discussion. I know there's quite a bit of it. I'm going to start with.
Before we get into discussion, I have a question.
Okay. Commissioner Spaulding?
Christie, so question for you. We just had he answered the question with saying the developer would replace a fence that was partially down, right? And I'm looking in the back, and Mike is shaking his head yes. Can we get an answer on if that fence is going to be replaced or not? Because it's a resident question, and he talked to somebody different. Mike's nodding, yeah. Mike, can you come up? Just, I'd like to get clarification on what's actually going to happen with that part of the fence.
I believe one of our consultants, Dave Romo, met with Alan and a few people from the community. And that sounds correct that they said that they might replace some fences, or it was difficult because there's so many different fence types along that back stretch along Rainy Way. But if that's what's needed if that was what was promised, we would be happy to work with the homeowners to get that back fence line replaced.
So right now, their good neighbor fence line is what I'm referring to.
Correct.
Okay. And you would be willing to do that for just this gentleman's house or the entire row of houses for uniformity?
So there should be one property line that's straight, and there are fences that are 1-2 feet out of, I don't know if it's on their property or on our property. So if it's, 2 feet into their property, I don't know that I'd want to go onto their property and construct something. If something happens, then it's not good for anybody.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Okay, very good. With that said, we can open it up for discussion, starting with Commissioner Johnson.
So I guess my understanding is that they have the right to build a two-story home. What they're looking for is these variances for the garages, the
Setbacks.
the setbacks, the 6-inch, 12-inch, and I guess it's lot 5 where the garage is actually sticking out from in front of the house itself. Everything else, it seems, from what I'm understanding, that the builder is willing to try to accommodate or mitigate or various things. It seems like, from what I understand, based on Mike's last comment, that the builder, I should say, the neighbors are not going to necessarily be looking at that brick wall. They'll be looking at whatever fence they have or a new fence, possibly. I just want to make sure I understand about the changes to the lot 5, I believe it is, where the garage is coming out. Make sure we are all in agreement on that type of thing.
I believe the city has Plan B in the event of, I think that Sarah read that, and we can put that in if this goes forward with condition.
Yeah, the condition is actually already in place. It's number 9.
Yeah.
Regarding lot 5. So it's conditioned to have all the lots comply with the interim objective design standards.
So that would address your concern.
And Commissioner Johnson, just to note for the record, there you mentioned the word variance, which perks up the attorney ears here. We don't have a variance. You're not making any variance findings tonight. Your interim objective design standards allow you to make this minor modification if you so desire.
Okay.
Did I say variance? I could have sworn I said modification.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Spaulding.
So there's a couple things with this. Just to the residents, you heard us ask many times if they would be willing to build a single-story house. I wish I had the power to make them build a single-story house for you, but we don't. It's zoned for it. That's the bad news. The good news is you have a very accommodating builder, and I can tell you after sitting here for 4 years and talking to many builders, there are many others that would not be as accommodating. potentially as this builder and some of the things. There is no other builder that I would know that would agree to rebuild a fence that is no longer in the condition that it could be in, right? From a design standpoint, I've already said these designs are top notch in my opinion. Some of the best I've seen in Brentwood and in terms of the layouts. I do have concerns over the impact of the two-story homes on the privacy because again, it's infill build. It's a challenge whenever you have that. But I would be looking to add a condition of approval for 48-inch box trees in the backyards for specifically the two-story lots. We'd have to figure out what that would mean and probably leave it ultimately up to the community director, I guess, to determine what was the appropriate number. That's the part where I would probably need some help from staff to craft that condition of approval. I think the other thing we need to talk about before we even get to the waivers is, how would we word the good neighbor fence line along Randy Way, or do we leave it out, right? Because if we're going to move forward with it, there's been some commitments tonight. I think we would be smart to memorialize it. The waivers, this commission has gone back and forth on whether we grant waivers or not since the interim design standards have been in place. So I certainly am more open to discussing the lots that have, 6 inches and a foot versus lot 5, which happens to be one of the two-story homes. So I'll be interested to hear what other people's opinions are on the waivers for the other 3. The landscape design is, conceptual we've seen is good. And I'll be curious to hear what people are saying about the waivers.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Floyd?
Okay. All right. I'm looking at this, trying to think about what we should do here. I think my first question is actually for you. What we have here is a situation where I don't know what happened in 2006 or whenever it was, but we have several people that are claiming that a promise was made and it wasn't memorialized in any way. So it's not in the minutes, apparently. It's not in any kind of condition of approval. It's not documented. And so that kind of means they're out of luck, right? They don't have anything that they can point to that says, it was just somebody said they would do something and then they didn't do it. And now somebody else owns the property. And so with that in mind, what I want to know is, as we go through here tonight and collect these promises, we can make all of these conditions of approval, like a promise to do something with the fence or whatever, as long as the applicant is amenable. We can actually memorialize those in conditions of approval, and then that way, 20 years from now, nobody will be asking what happened because it'll be there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, thank you so much. All right.
Through the chair, could I just clarify one point on that, though? The conversation regarding the promise that was made was not regarding this project at all. It was a promise that was made for the Carmel Estates subdivision to the north.
Fair enough.
Just wanted to clarify for the record. It wasn't for this project.
I'm just saying that whatever the recollection is, and whatever happened at that point in time, and I think that you're probably correct as far as what the minutes reflect, but still we have people that are concerned that it's not being remembered correctly. And so to prevent any misunderstanding, I just want to memorialize any promises we make tonight. They'll be able to, well, among other things, you can view this on video on YouTube and write down. I don't see anybody taking notes. Maybe they're taking notes, but things can be noted down, and we have much better minutes now because we have video. But still in all, I want to be able to memorialize things in the conditions of approval. All right. And having said that, Sarah, I'm looking at the project plans that were in the protected section, and I'm looking at page 41. Can you put that up? It's the left and right elevation on, I believe it's this is 4, I think. No, on
Sorry.
the protected plan.
Yeah, give me one second.
okay,
I'm sorry, what lots were you looking for?
I'm looking for page 41 in the PDF.
41.
I think it's lot 4.
It is lot 4. And so, and I'm just referring to this diagram I have in front of me, but it's the same diagram that is in the public record. Looking at lot 4, it does seem like the right elevation would be where there would be any concern of being able to view from the second floor. And I only see 3 little windows up there. I don't know if those are bedroom windows. That one's really small one looks like it might be a bathroom window. So the right elevation is the one that's on the bottom. And so other than that, I mean, there's not a lot of view from the second story. If you want to go back up to slide 40, you can see the back elevation. Yeah, I'm on lot 4. Am I not?
They go to the walk-in closets inside.
Oh, on the inside, those are walk-in closet windows, yeah. So, and then on the rear, which we're having a little trouble seeing. Let me go here because it'll help me. Yeah, again, the slide 40, but if you can bump it up just a little bit so we can kind of see the full elevation. But on the rear elevation, even if you could look out some of those little windows on the left there, you'd just be kind of looking, you'd have to kind of really do that just to look over and see anything. And there's that one big window, which is probably an actual bedroom, but I don't know, is that a bay window or is that just a flat window? The window there above on the second floor.
I believe it's more or less a flat window. I mean, they do project a little bit, but I don't think it's an actual bay window.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's a lot of, I don't know, looking in on the neighbors that's gonna be going on from there. I am just in preparation for this meeting, and I went in my own house, stood on the second floor, and in my neighborhood, the houses are pretty close together, so I can look right across. I can look down into the neighbors' backyards. They can look into mine, but we're side by side. So, but I can definitely see straight across. But it was the daytime, and you can't see in because in the daytime you get contrast from the sun shining on the side of the house, and if you look at a window, it just looks dark. And so, if my neighbor was particularly concerned about me spying on them, I think they would just draw their blinds and be fine. And I feel the same way about them. We're fine. We're neighbors. But I don't see a lot of concern about peeping from lot 4. And I think we go to 50. Oh, this is the front and rear, 51 actually. So the northwest elevation, and is the one that, so this one is, the back is facing kind of out towards the street. It is, it's at an angle, but the northwest, which is the left elevation, again, they just have those 4 windows. But 2 of them are decorated with, the crossbars, so I would imagine that's a bedroom. But this is the sum total of the problem is just these 4 windows. And again, they're bedroom windows. I don't know if anybody's going to be up there in the daytime looking out the window to see what they can see in their neighbors. I don't know, like Mrs. Kravitz from Bewitched isn't going to be sitting there looking across the street. So I don't, I'm not one normally to, normally my concern is the concerns of the neighbors and the residents that are there. And I don't want to minimize this in any way. But I think with the wall and the perspectives that they're showing, having these windows and the off chance that somebody might occasionally catch a glimpse of your backyard it doesn't concern me as much. It concerns the neighbors, and I'm very mindful of that. And I don't want to, upset anybody. But I think just having these 4 windows here and 3 on the other side, and 2 of them, I guess, were in a closet. So I'm not that concerned. I know that this is going to be a shocker to some on this commission. And as far as the garage offsets, yeah, I'm usually pretty hard line on making sure that we at least stick to the objective standards. 2 of them, it's a matter of 6 inches or a foot. They do at least have an offset, so the intent of having an offset is there. And the one with the garage in the front, that's more problematic. I mean, that is a big exception that we're being asked to make. But I think that we're also going to be asking the builder here to make some concessions and make some assurances and accept some conditions of approval as we go. So with that having said, and we'll want to go another round, I think, to make sure that we get everything into the conditions of approval that we've talked about tonight. But I think that under those conditions, I might be able to overlook that garage. It's not great, but on the other hand, it does provide them the ability to scooch the house forward and put a little bit more distance. And I haven't heard the neighbors really, anybody isn't really so concerned about that garage as they are about the privacy issue and the height issue. So that's my piece.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we can look at lot 7. I'm not quite sure what page it's on. Yeah, that'll be a backyard. So let's look at that.
What page is that? What page is
Looking
that?
for it. It's not in the packet. It's in this other private file. If you go in there.
I think I've got it.
This isn't it. That's the backyard. Let me see. What page is that?
69.
Oh, I went past it.
Okay.
Oh, there we are. Okay. Yeah, there you have full-on living spaces looking over the fence. I'm not sure what can be done there. We can't make them build a 1-story house as much as I would like to. Believe me,
Trees there. Trees.
Yeah, let's look at the.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, well, while you're looking through
we'll
that,
I'll mull that
Commissioner
some.
Brandt,
I mean, I share the concern of the residents with regard to privacy, and it's something that's very difficult to condense into a single sentence. And so I want to be sensitive to probably a variety of needs when it comes to the privacy of a 2nd-story building being, we'll call it 5+, however feet, however tall the windows are, particularly from, in cases like lot 7. I can speak from experience. My home is adjacent to a lot that is recessed at least several feet. It's an older home from the 1970s, I think. And so when I look out my bedroom window at the back of the house, I can look much further deeply into the backyard than I would normally be able to, despite my good neighbor fence in the rear. Thankfully, there's just horses that live there, so it's not like it's someone's house, but I can still, I get that, yeah, I don't want people looking at my kids in the backyard, that kind of thing, yes. So I know we've had these discussions before as a commission. It's like, we want to avoid designing from the dais. And I think in this case, a paramount concern we're hearing is that, the impact of a second story, particularly, I think it's 7, 5, and 4, that we need a solution if this commission agrees that, second floor buildings are acceptable. We need a solution an effective solution for privacy that encompasses most of what I think the residents are describing. Now, I don't have a great answer for that. So I'm not sure if as part of the conditions of approval, we can put this back to staff and say, can we continue to develop a plan that alleviates concerns from residents specifically to their individual concerns? But it's only 3 out of the 8 lots. It's not a 60 house subdivision. So it seems like there's these are semi-custom homes. There might have to be a semi-custom solution for each house. I wouldn't want to put a blanket approach to all 3 homes. So I don't think we can do that here today. I'm not confident in myself being able to make that decision here today. But I think staff could come back and say, hey, look, this is an ideal solution based off of the input from residents, as well as the developer themselves. So that being said, I did watch the Carmel Estates meeting. I think that was like June something, 2006. And it's ironic because a lot of the concerns that I'm hearing today were also brought forward back in 2006. With regards to privacy, a lot of folks from, Randy Way were there. And so, and Pulta Homes, I think, was the developer there. They were very helpful in that discussion to mitigate those concerns. And many of the residents in the area described how appreciative they were. And so I think I'm pleased to see more of that discussion occurring here today. I think it was a nice precedent then. It's nice to see now. I think, I get that the way that this property, or this parcel, or the whole parcel, this vacant lot as it stands right now, had to be raised considerably to meet the drainage demands. I think before a lot of this went in, there were drainage concerns, of Marsh Creek, in particular overflowing, and so therefore they needed to address drainage concerns. I mean, this is my understanding based off of what I've seen. So that makes sense. The unfortunate side effect is, as Mr. Bacalar knows, is engineering, everything's a compromise, right? There's no effective solution that, is time, money, or, quality, right? Pick 2. So in this case, I appreciate a lot of the discussion that we've had here today. I think the only other thing I read was that with the Carmel project, a lot of the residents talked about, guaranteeing that 20-foot setback. I think we're doing that here today pretty extensively, based off of what I've seen in these drawings. The last bits for the 3 areas addressing in the interim objective design standards, I would like to see them fulfilled personally. I think we're trying to hold a pretty decent standard here. I know it's something we typically agree on, but in this case, I think these are semi-custom homes. I think there could be an accommodation to meet the luxury requirements of these homes. And I think Vice Chair Sparling said it best. It's like, these are some of the best designs we've seen, in at least since I've been on this commission. I would agree with that statement wholeheartedly. And so I imagine that, I don't know what these other folks were sold as far as if these are designs, or if they were, somewhat similar, but I would like to see those standards fulfilled personally. So other than that, let's see. I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Johnson?
I went first, I think. You're coming back to me? Oh, this is round two. Don't you want to say anything?
No, I think that I heard what you just said, and I think that that is an option that the commission has, is sending it back to planning so that planning can take a look at the overarching issue here, which is privacy, and address the homes in question, the two-story homes, to see if there's a fix to that. Otherwise, we're going to be here putting some conditions on those homes, and we will probably miss some things relative to those conditions. So I, for one, would feel, I'm not comfortable with how this packet came to me. I can't speak for the rest of the commission. There's a wall that we're finding out about that, for whatever the reasons are, I didn't see it in the packet, although we've had a lot of discussion about it. I'm just, and that is a big piece to the concerns of the community, that this project is being, the discussion we're having around this project. The fence, the wall. I'm grateful that, as I said earlier, that the developer, the builder is willing to do whatever it takes to satisfy, and that comes back to conditions. And we would have to make it very clear that those conditions were part of our moving forward. But I, for one, would feel so much better having heard everything that we're discussing this evening, if planning would take a look at, especially the three homes we're talking about, and come back to us and have a discussion about what, if anything, came out. And I do believe that they would be equipped to say whatever it is that they could do relative to both fencing, landscaping, and whatever else might be needed to ensure the privacy issue. Again, it's a design, and this is my take. So I know that, as you've indicated, we're not here to redesign the design, but I'm here to speak and include the residents who've taken the time to come and speak their truth about how they feel about a community that they've been living in, with neighbors that are coming in to do something I think is quite good looking, but there are a few things that need to be addressed. So that's my take. So we'll do another round.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson?
Based on what the builder said, if I were to do anything, I would say they'd have to have trees in the backyard, the 45
Foot box. Yeah.
trees in specifically in the lot.
Yeah.
45. Thank you. I was like, I heard it go, and I was like, wait a minute, no. Then I'm gonna have Christy come for me. 48-inch box, specifically in the lots with the two-story houses. Additionally, another condition would be for all of the fencing that was promised, I guess, along Randy, to be rebuilt as promised. And I would want to see it as a condition of approval. So specifically those houses that are two stories, enough tree, and I don't know what the correct amount of trees are, if it's 3, if it's 4, but to make sure and ensure that there's no visibility, no issue with neighbors feeling uncomfortable. So if it's, I don't know the amount, but I would want to see those two things. Number one,
Okay.
trees on all two-story homes in the backyard. Number two, the fencing that was talked about for the houses on Randy Way.
Okay. Commissioner Spaulding.
So to try to have the discussion with you about sending it back or moving forward with something tonight, and also trying to make Commissioner Brand maybe comfortable with moving forward with something tonight. There's really only, from a privacy standpoint, there's really only that I can see two things that can be done, right? You either pull the houses forward a little bit to create more space, because you know that I rail against designing from the dais, because mistakes have been made, typically in commercial, not necessarily in residential. In my opinion, mistakes have been made when that's been done. But you can pull it forward, but you have to realize we have setbacks that limit us how far you could pull forward. So lot 7, which was brought up, has it's proposed to have a 22-foot front setback. We allow 20. You could pull it forward 2 feet. And that's not, I wouldn't call that really redesigning, right? Because it's just pulling it forward a little bit to create a little bit more space. There is because of the size of these lots, these houses and the sight lines are going to be a lot different than, say, Commissioner Floor's house and my house. We don't live near each other, but we live in the same neighborhood, right? Where you're more on top of your neighbors, and your backyard's maybe 10 to 12 feet deep versus these size lots. That's one thing that we could do, and even though I don't like designing from up here, that would be the one thing that we could recommend, and obviously check with everybody to see if that would be a logical, conclusion for the homes that you could do that with to create more privacy. The second thing, obviously, is what Commissioner Johnson said, which is to make sure that we have a condition of approval for the 48-inch trees, which the applicant is not required to put in. It's not in ours, and he's agreed to it, which I'm thankful for. And I think the condition of approval will read something to the effect of enough trees that create the level of privacy that we've discussed tonight, and leave it up to the community director to determine whether it's, what that is the right amount with. Because I could argue that they should be every few feet, there should be one, or basically there's a corner that's a problem, and maybe in that lot, that's just where the trees go. For that, those really are the two options that we can do to increase the privacy in those 3 lots that we're talking about, in my opinion. And those are all doable tonight, in my opinion. When it comes to the waivers, I think what we've gone back and forth on this, and my thing is consistency. I don't care what it is. But we should have consistency, so developers, both commercial and residential, understand when they submit plans what we're willing to grant and what we're not willing to grant. We just had a developer come back, and I know each project had to stand on their own merits, and I get that, but I don't live in a vacuum, as I've said many times. So I think we should, in my opinion, we need to be consistent with that, which would mean not granting these waivers. But if the commission felt like we should grant waivers, I'm open to granting the waivers for 3 and 4. Lot 5 is a whole other ballgame, in my opinion. And it happens to be one of those 2-story lots. That's not the reason. It's just, I think we have these design standards, whether we all like them or not. They are what they are, and we need to send a consistent message with it. So with that, I'll.
Okay, appreciate it. Commissioner Foy? Okay, Commissioner Brandt.
Thank you. Okay, so maybe this is a question for Alan, are there, based on Vice Chair Sparling's comments, are there other privacy mitigations that we haven't discussed thus far that you are aware of in the relationship between, let's call it Lot 5 and its surrounding neighbors?
Thank you, Commissioner Brand. I personally can't think of any. I might defer to Sarah or Eric to see if they have any insight.
Well, I can take a look at the floor plan for lot 5, I was looking at lot 7, which I know we're not necessarily talking about right now, but there might be some options of some window change or relocating some windows on lot 7 that I saw maybe could work. I have not looked into lot 5, but I can do that as well.
I just mean like external modifications. So something, we brought up landscaping, we brought up the idea of pulling the primary structure forward towards the street.
I can't
Kind
think
of thinking
of,
outside of the box, maybe.
yeah, I mean, I guess the frosted glass is another option for the windows. That could be put in. One other thing, I mean, just to kind of keep in mind as well is the second story is mostly centered on the home. So there's parts of, like, for instance, again, lot 7, that the first floor extends out to the rear of the property further than the second floor does. So the second story mass is more centered on the homes. So it doesn't, we can look at it, but it doesn't go to all of basically it doesn't cover all of the footprint of the first floor. So there may be areas where we actually even have a greater setback than what we're seeing on just the footprint of the site plan. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's basically, yeah, I mean, it's just, there's like a whole great room on the lot 7 that there's nothing above it. And that is a whole other area that extends towards the rear property line. So you're gaining, a good another 20 feet in that case. So that could help mitigate again, but I think that's been done, those visuals have been done by the renderings, so they've taken that into account. But I guess the only other physical thing that I can think of right now would be frosted glass.
Okay. Commissioner Foy, you ready?
Yes, thank you. Sarah, just going back to the idea of the great room there, are you suggesting that, still looking at 69, at this big window that's at the back of the house, that's kind of up over the glass door, are you saying that that's actually, there's not a floor there, it's like an upstairs, it's like a window that you could see from the first floor?
No, I was referring to, when I was looking at was specifically lot 7, is that they had a first floor room that was a whole nother room on the first floor that there was no space above it on the second.
Oh, I see.
So not necessarily this scenario here with the lot that you're referring to, but that I believe is a second story space where you're talking about currently.
Yeah, but they are, the second story is set back, well, the diagram I have doesn't really show, but we'd have to go back and look at the diagram, but it's set back pretty far. And I can realize that just by looking at this thing. So,
It's
all right.
roughly about 80 feet for that lot is where the second story is set back from the property line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that helps.
Yeah.
All right. So really, all we're talking about is trees and fencing. And I don't know, maybe moving the houses, but I really don't know if that's necessary. The one that would benefit from that is lot 7. And I think we've already just established that those windows are actually closer to the street than the lower floor. So I don't know. The only thing I'll mention, and it's kind of a can of worms, but especially in lot 7, the house behind it, which is on this diagram is 653 on this diagram, does have a rack of solar panels back there. So whatever tree was selected would need to be tall enough that somebody sitting in house on lot 7 doesn't really see over there, but not so tall that it shades those solar panels, because that's expensive. Trust me, I have solar panels and I do have some shade on them. So yeah, but other than that, I think that's probably an adequate solution. maybe even a tree kind of more in the middle of the yard. I don't know, for fire safety, that's not great, but actually, if you're trying to obscure somebody's view, the closer the obstruction is to them, the more, the more obscure it's parallax, right? So if the tree could be kind of in the middle of the yard, would maybe give you more coverage. Don't know that that applies so much on lot 5 or 4. All right, well, I don't think, I really don't feel comfortable. If somebody else wants to write the conditions, appreciate it.
Well, if we're going to move forward with this, those conditions would need to be with vegetation in the back, trees, as we've communicated, and it would have to be fenced. Now, I heard the applicant say, and we may. There's no may in the condition, it would be, as it relates to the fencing. And it would have to adhere to or satisfy both the neighbors, okay? It's not something that I feel equipped to sit here and say it's going to be a chain fence. It's definitely not going to be a chain link fence, but there has to be some content to what kind of fencing we're talking about, and there's going to have to be some content to what and how many trees. Because remember now, we got caught, at least I got caught, not being as specific as we need to be. We need to be as specific as possible when it comes to how many trees, and we need to be specific about the fencing. Now, the alternative, as I see it, is now that we've put this out there for a condition, is to make the recommendation to the planning department, and they're the ones that have the actual layout, and come back or have a conversation with the design review people to say that this is what they've come up with and it satisfies all. Or we can jump out there and do it ourselves this evening, which I don't have a problem with, but I want us to be real specific. We're not going to just put one little skinny tree in the backyard of number 7. Okay, so that's what we are charged with, and we're going to have to work through that.
So through the chair, what I'd maybe suggest is, I think Christy and Eric
And Sarah.
Have heard what we've asked for when it comes to privacy and the fence, as well as both the good neighbor fence as well as the consistent fencing around. So there's the good neighbor fence on Randy Way. There's the 48-inch box trees that the applicant has agreed to put in place for the lots that are the 2-story lots.
Correct.
And then I think Chair Roberts just mentioned consistent fencing around the actual property. We did that with Orchard Grove,
Yes.
where it was this consistent fencing around, which is what the applicant has already said they're going to do. They showed the brick wall. That's going to be what it is. So I think what might be an idea is to have Christy and Eric and Sarah write up those conditions of approval. We take a 5 or 10 minute break so they can write them up, then we can review them. We can go through it. But before we do that, we probably should figure out what we're doing with the waivers. So that way we're good on the waivers, and that way they can do whatever other drafting they need to do. Does that sound like a reasonable approach?
It sounds like a reasonable approach, but again, we're still stuck with how many trees. Okay, and so that's my issue. Again, putting one tree in the backyard, that's not going to work out.
Well, we have to remember that if it's what to Commissioner Floor's point, right? If you put one tree in the middle of the lot, that I would agree, that would shield it, but the homeowner who buys it can take it out, right? So you want to put it where you logically would put it, which is along the fence line.
Right.
There is Lot 7 with the solar has some uniqueness, so there's going to have to be there's going to have to be something that allows us to work it back. My preference would be not to have it come back to design review, because this project has been out there since 2006. Right, and I think with the conditions that they can draft for us, I think that will give us what we want. If we're not comfortable, we can add specific number of trees if we want. So,
I have a suggestion. I was going to suggest design review. After what I would suggest, I'll put it this way: I was going to suggest that we do have a design review that staff that we would put these conditions in. And part of the condition would be that a design review would be done on the trees and the external fence, the wooden fence. But if you have an objection to that, I don't mind. But we should state that staff would have the final approval then, and I'm pretty comfortable with staff doing that.
yeah, I think if we get the conditions tight tonight, right, then I don't think we need to. If we're a little bit uncomfortable with that, then sure, we can send it back to design review. I just think that with what we'll hear from the drafts, I'm sure we can get to a point where we can just, agree on that we're okay with these conditions. We've got a very amenable builder from what it feels like. We'll ask them to agree to these conditions as well, and we move forward.
Yeah, through the chair, I think that all sounds really good. The only thing that I would suggest at the end of all of that, and we'll display the modified conditions or new conditions on the screen, go through them one at a time so everybody can see them, understand them. I would also want the commission to call the applicant back to the podium at the very end before a motion is made. So there's an actual, I don't want to do nodding or shaking from the seat in the chamber. And it has been hard at times to hear the applicant with the mic at the podium. So I want to make sure this is on the record. It's very clear for everybody, not just the people that are here tonight, but that might watch this a year from now or 10 years or 20 years from now. But we can certainly do that. And I think we would need a little bit of time. I don't know if it's a 5, a 10, maybe even a 15-minute recess. We'll go as quickly as we can. But we can certainly do that working together.
Okay, very good. Well, okay, very good.
So we have to discuss the waivers then. Yep.
Okay, so Commissioner Floyd?
Well, I think, my opinion hasn't really changed. I would be okay with the garage exception, given all the other concessions. However, I'm very mindful of Vice Chair Sparling making the point that we need to be consistent. And so it wouldn't bother me if somebody wanted to make a different suggestion.
Commissioner Brandt?
I think one thing that probably all of us agree on is that there's a significant distinction between the first two and the third. The first two are considerably less, let me pick a better word. You said it. Yes, they seem as though they're a much less of an exception compared to the third. So if we're talking in that regard, I do agree with the consistency. I think that's a fair assessment, considering the interim objective design standards are one of our only few remaining tools that a commission of this type has in order to, effectively and equally adjudicate different designs in that nature. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Johnson?
Well, considering that a couple meetings ago, I was summarily reamed over 5 inches, right? I think we do need to be consistent. And in that instance, I remember saying that, being hard-lined on produces unforeseeable circumstances. So I think that we should, if we're going to do it for one, we got to do it for all. So at least we can be consistent. Although me personally, I would make the waiver on those two, maybe not the last one. But because this commission has been so ardent on down to the last inch, I think we should be consistent.
Commissioner Spaulding?
Yeah, I'll make this somewhat quick. I think that, planning is gray, that was trained early on by Mr. Nolthenius, and as well conversations with Jennifer and Sarah, that planning is gray, and you look at the shape of these lots, and that's why they're not all square, right? And so that's why you need to have some flexibility. I'm okay with having the flexibility on the first two, not on the third. That's too much of a breach of the design standards.
Okay, well, I, for one, am going to stand on consistency. So with that said, that is where I stand on all three of them. And so that's where I am. I would like to be consistent. When we start pulling away from maybe this one, but not that one, then it becomes a situation with future applicants. So I just assume I would rather be consistent on all three, and that's where I stand. So with that said, I'm going to, should we take a vote on the waivers and then come back 15 minutes later, or how do we want to do this?
Excuse me, Madam Chair. Yeah.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right, so
Sorry, I didn't have it.
we'll institute those waivers as planning has already put together.
Yeah, I think we have a good idea what the consensus is of the commission on the various issues. So
Sure.
give us a chance to memorialize that in writing, and then we can display it once the recess is over.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and break for recess, and we'll come back at 9 o'clock. 9. I know, 10 o'clock.
We'll shoot for 10.
10 o'clock, okay? We're in recess.
As a reminder, your mics are still hot if you do not turn them off.
All right, we're gonna get back into session.
First time I've heard her use it.
I like it. Okay, so let's go ahead and resume our meeting here. I think somebody's going to put something up on the screen for us to take a look at.
Okay. So through the chair, this is what we came up with. The first change would be to modify the existing draft condition number 10. It's a little bit wordy, but I'll just read through it and then we can maybe just go through these one at a time. So all trees shall comply with the city's urban forest guidelines. That's actually how it currently reads. So we're recommending that the following additional language be put in. To maximize privacy between the existing adjacent homes, the applicant shall plant trees along the rear property line of lots 4, 5, and 7. And those are the 3 two-story homes. The trees shall be a container size of 48-inch box with species, spacing, and location to be determined by the Director of Parks and Recreation and the Director of Community Development. This is important too. We didn't talk about this earlier, but this last sentence, the trees shall be maintained in perpetuity, and the requirement, therefore, memorialized in the CC&Rs for this project with enforcement delegated to the HOA, because the city really isn't going to have an enforcement mechanism otherwise. So hopefully that captures.
Wow, you really, now I understand why you are the planning manager.
Okay, let's move on, please.
So
Thank you for that.
right, so essentially that means that the person who buys the home can't take the trees out.
Trees out.
What happens if a tree dies? Does that have to be replaced? Is that
Effectively, yes, that's where we had the maintain in perpetuity.
Yeah.
So, and again, as the commission was discussing, there's really no way from the dais tonight to figure out what the exact spacing is, what the correct species is. So we would have to figure that out at the staff level with our kind of in-house
Very good.
experts. So if the commission's comfortable with the wording for that, I'll go to the next one.
Very good.
Okay, all right. So the next would be to modify condition 13. Let me actually scroll up a little bit. Condition 13 to talk about the fencing for the property owners on Randy Way. So that would read, permittee shall coordinate with the affected Randy Way property owners to replace the existing fences with city standard good neighbor fencing consistent with standard detail ST-22. This is part of our standard plans and specifications that engineering maintains. In their existing locations along the south boundary of the project prior to issuance of any building permits. So before any homes are constructed, foundations, anything, that would have to be done.
Okay, I think somebody mentioned that with the fences or walls going to be put up before.
So that clarifies timing.
Very good.
Any questions on that one?
Yeah, so my assumption is if someone's fence is not currently on the property line, right? Maybe they've pushed their fence out because there's nothing been there for forever. How would, I'm assuming this would just pull it back to the actual proper property line?
Basically, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking if a fence exists, right, that's 2 feet beyond. I mean, I was down at the property yesterday, right? So I drove around and saw what I could see, but I'm not going to know the property line, right? So want to make sure that if someone, that's just going to be the effect, right? So if someone has pushed it out, it's going to go back to the property line.
Right.
Okay.
But the other key too is that it's incumbent upon the permittee to coordinate with each of these property owners before the fences are rebuilt.
Oh, you need to say that needs to be put in.
It is.
Okay, very good.
That's the first part of it.
Okay, great.
I just wanted to make sure everybody else knew it.
Understood.
And just the south, we're not doing the north.
Right, because those were Randy Way is south of the project site. The north side is you're talking about the brick wall.
No, the fence between the brick wall and the people's houses. I just didn't know if we were only doing that on the south side or if we were doing it on the north side.
Yeah, just on the south side.
Yeah, the north side is just a brick wall.
Okay.
Yeah, the north boundary and then the north half of the east boundary is currently delineated by that existing brick wall, and that'll stay. And then the last modification would actually be a new condition, so this would be number 18, and it has to do, in fact, with that brick wall. So permittee shall construct a brick wall with a height of 7 feet on top of the proposed retaining wall, and then we put in parentheses here that that's measured from the interior finished grade of the new lots, that 7 foot, along the remainder of the east boundary of the subdivision, as well as along the entirety of the south boundary of the subdivision. So I know this is kind of wordy, but we wanted to be very specific. Said wall shall match the design of the existing wall along the north boundary of the subdivision and the north half of the east boundary of the subdivision, basically just capturing existing conditions.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
that makes sense to me. I'm satisfied. Commissioners, you can chime in.
I'm good. We just need to hear from
Commissioner
the.
Johnson, are you good?
I'm good. I just want to follow up on what the planning manager had mentioned about bringing up the.
Oh, yeah, we're going to do that. I
That's
just
okay.
want to check with
Yeah, I'm
everybody
good.
here first. Commissioner Floyd?
I'm good with it.
Okay, and Commissioner Brandt?
Yeah.
Okay, I will have the applicant come back up with his colleague. All right, sir. So we have put together some, based on some of the conversations we've had earlier with you and your colleague about whatever it takes as it relates to both the fencing and the landscaping and or tree or whatever it's necessary for privacy. And so this is the language now that we've put as a condition that needs to be okayed by you, because initially you communicated to us that you're willing to work with the community that you're building your project in,
Correct.
okay?
These are all
So do you see
agreeable.
anything that is troubling to you, or are you okay with that language?
I'm good with this language. It's well put.
That's all I need to hear. Thank you so much. So at this point, we can go ahead and take a motion. I look for a motion.
I'll make a motion. Let me just get this. I'm just trying to get this here. Oh, what did I just do here?
Uh-oh.
I'm trying to get this motion out here. Thank you. I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 25-001, approving the design review 22-010 for 8 single homes located on the east side of Minnesota Avenue, just north of Randy Way, with the modifications 10, 13, and the new one 18 that was displayed on the screen.
I'll second that.
Before we vote, the waivers.
So there are existing conditions of approval that address the waivers or address the lots to be modified in order to comply with the interim objective design standards. So those are condition of approval number 8 and 9. So they would be, it's requiring that they modify the lots and modify the design of the homes to meet the requirements of the ODS.
Okay.
Do I need to repeat this? And adding
The waivers.
the waivers.
They're already
You don't
in
need- yeah, you don't
the
need to.
conditions of approval, so it would still stand.
Still stands. Okay.
And you've seconded?
I do.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
And one no, one nay. One nay and 4 ayes. The ayes have it. Congratulations. Okay, let's move on to the zoning code amendments to the Brentwood Municipal Code. And Ms. Jennifer Hagan will present.
Thank you, Chair and members of the commission. If you could please share my screen. Tonight, we are here to discuss zoning code amendments to our municipal code to comply with state law as required by the city's adopted housing element and implementation policies. Just as background, in March of 2023, the city adopted our initial updated housing element. In August of that year, staff presented updates to the council that had proposed policy and program changes that were required by HCD, and then submitted that revised draft to HCD for a third review. Following that up in January of 2024, HCD reported that our revised policies and programs met all of our statutory requirements. And then in February of 2024, the City Council then adopted final amendments to update the housing element, including all of the associated goals, policies, and programs, which we refer to as actions.
Okay.
These goals, policies, and programs are the key component of our housing element, representing the city's proposed housing plan with a focus on actionable steps and measures to preserve and improve housing in the city. The majority of the actions and programs that were required as part of our housing element were related to state legislation and new laws that went into effect. Some of these included modifications to our emergency shelter regulations, our inventory sites, as well as just the overall state housing element law, which is a government code section listed here. Before you tonight, staff is bringing forward 11 of the actions that we committed to be adopted by January of 2025. Within the staff report, staff has provided a brief summary of all 11 of these, as well as our goals and objectives, and a summary of how each of these have been met within our red line zoning code updates. With that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt attached resolution 25003, recommending that the City Council adopt an ordinance to amend the municipal code to comply with state laws as required by the city's housing element implementation programs. Staff is available to answer any specific questions on any of the items, and staff does have our outside consultants from Kimley Horn on the line as well, in case we need their assistance for answering any of your questions. And that concludes staff's report.
Okay, thank you very much. Does the commission have any clarifying questions for planning for Miss Sarah? No, it's not Miss Sarah.
Jennifer.
I'm so sorry, Miss Jennifer. Yeah, sorry about that, Jennifer. Commissioner Floyd,
No questions.
Commissioner Brand,
None for me.
Commissioner Johnson,
I have no questions.
and Commissioner Spaulding.
No clarifying questions, but I will have questions once we get there.
Okay, very good. Then I have none. So at this time, I'll open it up for a public hearing.
Through the chair, at this time, we have no speaker cards for those here in person.
Okay.
We will go to Zoom. We do have one hand raised, and that's Danny Dorman.
Okay, assuming you can hear me. Well, as I said prior, when it comes to HCD, which is why we're doing this in the first place, I would ask if this is possible to have a continuance so that staff can drill down on what happens if. And I'll use the example, I'm looking at, what is this, page 132 of 277, Garin Ranch land use. And it has, I'll look at the very top, it says cluster home, planning area 1, 6.9 acres, and dwelling unit 64. So Dorman Enterprises comes in and I say, I want to build 64 homes and they're going to be all 2-story. And the city agrees, and then we go forward. HCD has already blessed it at this point because we fell within their parameters. What happens if Dormant Enterprises decides to squeeze in a 65th? Or what happens if Dormant Enterprises decides to cut back to 63? Now, in both those cases, I believe you need a conditional use permit. This is where I was getting at earlier, that if we decide we don't want to give a conditional use permit, HCD should not be involved at this point. The role of HCD is to make sure that the HCD standards are met. And if they are not met because we don't like the design, the developer keeps coming back and go on until you get to the 5th where you have to take it. Well, that's something that's decided. And that's where HCD says, okay, this is decided, they're gone. We already know what happens in our case if we don't play by the rules. HCD will come slam down hard on us. Dormant Enterprises can build whatever he wants. But what needs to be clear, and as I said, this falls deep into the HCD, don't want to talk about it, why'd you ask the question, blah, blah, blah. And that is, if the developer, during the course of the build out, wants to make a change, that we, the city, planning or council, are not obligated to acquiesce. We made the deal. The developer accepted the deal. It has HCD's blessing. Therefore, any additional changes that come from the developer would now fall under civil action. HCD can't get involved in it because, and I know this from experience, that they don't get involved in it. They like to do I talked to someone and I said this, and that's why I keep pushing this out there, that when they are no longer involved, they are no longer involved. We need to hold these developers' feet to the fire. Going back to the gentleman that is trying to have these homes built and the 2-story versus 1. I see a scenario where this was his first get together with you guys. He comes back, takes down 1 2-story building, but leaves 1 up, gives it to you, you deny it. Well, now that's 2. He comes back, adds a building, you deny it. I think you guys know where I'm going with this. This is where I was talking about the good faith aspect of it. The developer knows what it is you'd like to see. Now, whether he likes it or not is a whole different story. But he should be coming back with a good faith effort. If you want no 2-story buildings, then don't come back and say, well, how about we put a 2-story building here and a 2-story building there? Because
The speaker's time has expired.
All right, and that's it for Zoom?
That is it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, very good. So at this time, I will close public hearing, and the applicant.
Through the chair, you'll need a motion to close the public hearing, please.
Yes, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, very good. So let's have the discussion. Commissioner Floyd?
I'm gonna ask Jennifer a question. Jennifer, is there anything in here that we don't absolutely have to do?
Not as part of the items before you tonight, no.
Okay, and if we, if the city council doesn't make these revisions to the housing element, what will the state do to us again?
There could be potential enforcement issues. These are things that the city council and the city has committed to do on specific timelines. Every year, the city is required by law to provide the state with an update on our progress to meet these. And so as part of that, we will have to update them by April 1st of our implementation and how we've done that. At that point, it would be up to the state on how they choose to enforce this, but there are multiple avenues, including, all the way up to the most severe, which would be having our housing element out of compliance with state law, which would then make us vulnerable to builder's remedy applications.
All right, thank you so much. That's all.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Brandt?
Is this discussion or is this questions?
We've already had
A
questions.
little bit of both. I mean,
Yeah.
well, this commission has, we've dealt with this before. This is clearly not our first rodeo. I think Commissioner Floor stated it best, well, via Jennifer's comments. We have the luxury of not having to make the hard decision. We aren't city council. We make a recommendation to city council. And I think it behooves us to make a strong point in opinion based off of, from what I'm seeing here is just the state telling us what to do again. And I'm over it at this rate. And I think our vote should reflect that.
Yep, I agree. Commissioner Johnson?
I don't have any questions.
Commissioner Spaulding?
Not sure what I'm over it means, but I guess we'll find out soon. So Jennifer, we spoke this afternoon and I asked you some questions. And so I just want to get clarification on this. The primary thing that I see besides fixing problems that really don't exist in Brentwood is primary area of concern for me was the impact of the SROs. So I guess it's H4J, if I'm correct, where it talks about, I always think of them as dorm type living, right? So today you have a citizen who has their own house and they can rent out their, if you have a 5-bedroom house, you can rent out for those bedrooms to 4 different individuals. There's nothing the city, state can do to that. That's your property. In this instance, we've had a developer come to us and try to give us in an affordable housing unit a house for us to manage that has 5 individual bedrooms and a shared basically everything else. And that one was denied by both planning and council. By us, if this is to move forward as a recommendation and city council approves us, does this language make it easier for a developer to put those types of products into a development in Brentwood?
The short answer is no. Currently, SROs are actually listed as conditionally permitted in multiple zones, but our code did not actually define what an SRO was. So what this does is just clearly defines it. That's all HCD had requested us to do. They did not request us to change any of our uses, make them permitted, anything like that. We are allowed to have them as conditionally permitted uses in the 2 zones that it's listed. We just define them, and they are defined per state law. What was approved or what was requested as part of that single family would not have qualified under what our definition is as an SRO. So the likelihood of this being used in a single family is near to none. This is something that is applicable to our COR zone and our CR zone, which is a mixed use commercial type zones.
Okay, thank you. The other question we talked about was the residential care facilities and the difference between small and large. I guess small is 6 beds and under and large is 7 beds and under. I didn't realize this, but can you go over the notification process if I have a house and my next door neighbor decides to open up a small or large one? How do I find out about that?
So residential care facilities are actually legislated and licensed through the state of California. They are not licensed through the city. And as part of the state licensing process, there is not a notification for single family homes. As part of the state legislation and the laws that we are modifying our code, they are treated as single family homes and therefore they are not noticed. So you would not be noticed if you had one next door to you.
And so tomorrow, someone could, all of a sudden, there could be lots more cars on my street because people are visiting relatives that I didn't know we're there and there's no recourse for both the city as well as the residents.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So all that said, you know, and I know that this might be off topic, but somehow or another, it does get filtered in. With these mandates, and I heard loud and clear from the gentleman that called in on Zoom, that there is some pieces here that of concern as it relates to HCD's footprint and exactly how they would come in or not come in as it relates to what it is that you're putting before us, which is, this is, if we don't go along with this, HCD can come in and do this, that, and the other, and worst case scenario. And I'm not sure that, see, the one thing that this commission has not had, and I know it's going on in the state of California, is precedents that have been set in other municipalities where folks have gone against, and I know there have been two, and widely communicated in the Southland where, and they won their cases. So I'm just trying to figure out how do we, and it's probably more for council than it is for planning, how do we look at this, especially in light of all the fires that are going on in the Southland, where homes are being built the way they are, and we're talking about building everything and anything on open space and not being prepared for such a apocalyptic event. I don't know that this might at some point get walked back, I'm not sure. But one thing I am sure of is that this commission is adamant against all of it. And we have a tendency, and we, to be consistent, have said, we don't agree, and we will push this off on city council. I hate to use the word push, but we just don't agree with anything related to what is being put before us, forcing our hands to engage in things that I, for one, am not comfortable with, never have been. And that's not going to change. So that's my take on it. And with that said, if there's no more discussion, I'm willing to open it up for a vote.
May I just, Sarah, just a quick question. The language that's in here that's all been, Jennifer, I did it, dang it. Oh. Jennifer, I'm sorry, I really apologize. The language that's in here, this was previously approved by the council?
The specific language of the goals and policies that dictated all of the standards and the objectives was approved by the city council. What staff has done is taken the objectives and the actions and then put it into our code form, and that's the red line attachment.
Gotcha.
Okay, so I entertain a motion.
Before we do that, so we have two consultants on the line. Is there anything that we're missing here? I mean, this is something that the state is expecting the city council to pass, right? And real, I guess the way when I read this, I think it's like what, I don't know, with the red lines, it was like 90 pages. A lot of it seemed to me to not really be new. It was just refining language that's already existing, and maybe tweaking things here or there. I don't agree with some of it, but still, I think it's already existing. Is that overall a correct assumption of what this is in front of us in terms of the changes?
The edits.
Inez or Bryant, would you like to answer?
Yes. Hi, good evening. Yes, that is correct. For the most part, the changes that were made are reflective of state law. Many of the changes include government code sections, to be precise. Just in case the language changes within the government code section, the references are included in there. as Jennifer mentioned, I would suggest, yes, that these are state laws that the city is mandated to follow and that there are severe consequences to not adopting the red lines, including decertification of the housing elements, which would open you up to builder's remedy and other consequences as well.
But isn't most of the language already there today? And it's already in our element. This is just updating what's already there. And I didn't really see anything that was dramatically different from a current to the red line.
Yeah, so overall, what is currently in our code, the changes related to these 11 policies are not going to substantially modify how the city has been operated or run our day-to-day operations. For example, the definition of a family, it was minor tweaks that we had to make to that definition because that is made somewhere along, one of the recently adopted state legislations that was required. But overall did not substantially change the definition in terms of how we have been implementing that definition in terms of single-family residential uses. So overall, none of these are going to substantially change how we currently do day-to-day operations, and the majority of these, like farm worker employee housing, are applications that most likely we are not going to see. We may see some of these, but it's not likely that we are going to get substantial applications related to any of these in the near future.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any more discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make one more point before we go on to this. This is all about affordable housing, farm worker housing. It's very, I'm very sympathetic to all of those ideas, affordable housing for people who need it. And nothing I'm going to say here tonight is going to indicate in any way that I don't support affordable housing. I think the city of Brentwood has done a great job increasing affordable housing, and I think we should be left to our own devices to do it. So anything that I might say is not in any way, and I think, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I suspect this is true of everybody, that anybody that might be opposed to this is not opposed to affordable housing. We want to see people housed. We don't want to see people unhoused. But I do think that the state needs to stop telling us how to do it. So having said that, I think last time, Christy, we somehow or another made a motion just to not make a recommendation.
Yes, correct. You made a motion to decline to make any kind of recommendation on this.
So this may shock you, because I can't stand the state and what they're doing to towns like Brentwood, or city, I guess I should call it a city. But my interpretation of this, which is why I asked that the question about what really changes, right? What real impacts is this going to have versus current language versus the text amendment, right? From what I see, and I certainly could have missed something, this is what we're already doing, and it's just cleaning some things up. Unlike where we did the no vote for the ADUs, I think dramatically changed it. We saw 10 lots today that went and approved them that could have 4 ADUs on them, tomorrow, right? Because of the space. That's a dramatic change, and that's where the state can, go focus on some things and actually get things accomplished instead of worrying about what cities like Brentwood do with housing. But this, I think, is a little bit different because it's just updating the text amendment. I don't like what's in it, but we're already doing it today. So that's all I'll add. And I'm not agreeing with the state. I just think it's not really changing anything.
So my response to that is being consistent and seeing how we've kicked it back consistently. We need to continue to be consistent. That's just my take. So with that said, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to adopt Resolution 25-003, recommending the City Council adopt an ordinance approving a zoning text amendment to the Brentwood Municipal Code RZ 24-008 to amend the Brentwood Municipal Code relating to the housing element implementation programs.
I second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
No.
No.
The noes have it. Motion has not passed.
Yeah,
Okay.
so no action was taken
Correct.
because the motion to approve was denied. Does the commission wish to, entertain some other motion? Or, otherwise the record, as it stands, the record is going to reflect that, we tried to adopt a recommendation and the recommendation to approve was denied. Are you comfortable with that action? Or would you prefer to do the same thing you guys did last time, which is adopt like a decline to recommend? The same sort, it's going to go to the council regardless.
Regardless, it's going to council.
So you're comfortable
Yeah,
with
I'm
the denial?
comfortable.
Okay.
Yeah. We're going to be consistent on that one. Okay, with that said, let's go into informational reports for committee and upcoming meeting schedules. A transplant,
Last 2 meetings have been canceled.
okay, design review,
No meetings.
and land use and development, no meetings. Brentwood Municipal Code review.
It was canceled. I think they'll probably push it out, though.
Oh, okay. Requests for future agenda items. Any?
Yep.
Okay. Commissioner Spaulding.
So I have 2. One is, and it probably could be added potentially to the future agenda item request that I made when we looked at a restaurant taking up more than 15% of a space, right, and having to come before us. I think what we saw tonight was a waste of resources with the Vietnamese restaurant that we approved. Something that I think we need to take a look at the areas where restaurants who are not serving alcohol, because alcohol obviously has to come to us automatically, right, as a CUP. But if we have a restaurant that is just looking to open, specifically in an existing building, that we need to clear the path and get these businesses open quicker, because this did take longer than in my opinion it should have. And so I'd like to I don't know if it's appropriate to add it to the same future agenda request item as the 15%. Certainly seems logical to me, but we may have to do it separately. Is that clear enough to?
Yeah, and
You're saying to bypass the planning commission altogether? With that?
Can I just interject?
I need to understand.
If I may.
Mhm.
The reason that was in there is because PD 35 specifically requires it for a restaurant. According to the staff report, I didn't actually read PD 35, but I'm pretty sure Sarah wouldn't mistake that.
Correct. But what I'm suggesting that we discuss, because we can't discuss it tonight, is looking at the areas where that's the case and seeing if that's something that we want to change in order to get businesses open quicker because they weren't looking to serve alcohol.
And just to clarify, you're talking about restaurants specifically.
Yeah, restaurants specifically. The second, and we've talked about this before and I don't know if this would be appropriate to put in the interim design standards or some other way. We saw the impact of the fires in LA, right? But you've heard me talk many times about defensible space around homes. People continue to get their, I was disappointed in Shea. They essentially lied when they said people are not getting declined insurance. They actually are. I spoke to an insurance agent today, former Commissioner Ziegler. It's still happening. It's both new as well as existing. For different reasons are getting denied. So I think we need to at least do what we can and have a discussion around, should we put into our landscape approach to defensible space around new homes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, that being said, I look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next meeting is scheduled for February the 4th, 7 PM, right here at Council Chambers at 150 City Parkway. All right, very good. Have a good evening.